across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Yes, welcome to the home of common sense. Thank you to Julia. She's back Monday right here on Talk. As you will be more than aware, England have broken a 60-year World Cup curse by coming from behind to beat DR Congo 2-1 last night. The first time the Three Lions have overturned a deficit at a World Cup since winning back in 1966, with Harry Kane, of course, sending fans dreaming of what might be coming this summer. It's tough. It's tough, but we're all behind them, of course. Also this afternoon, Andy Burnham has demanded ministers exhaust every option to deport Rochdale grooming gang ringleader Shabir Ahmed, who has, as we speak, just been released from prison. Despite 30 child rape convictions, questions mount over whether Britain's next Prime Minister can untangle the country's broken immigration system. Will Burnham solve the insanity of our immigration policy in this country? It's a strange question. We're going to run with it. And deaths have begun to outnumber births throughout England and Wales for the first time. Researchers marking yesterday as Death Day, and warning that Britain has entered a new demographic era with 450,000 more deaths than births projected over the next decade alone. We have a problem. We ain't procreating. We'd like to encourage you, if you're at home with your other half, throughout the course of this show, to bonk like your life flipping depended on it. Just go for it. I mean, before it gets too hot out there, got another heat wave coming. Come on, produce some little chavis for us. You can do it. 0344 499 1000. I was invoking a bit of Del Boy there on that. 0344 499 1000 is our number, of course. If you're messaging, it's 87222. You know, when I wake up in the morning, I've discovered only in the last couple of days, there's one thing that puts a spring in my step.
Good growth in every postcode, hope in every heart. That's our mission.
Prime Minister to be Andy Burnham. Go on, Andy, you cheeky little...
Good growth in every postcode, hope in every heart. That's our mission.
Good growth in every postcode, hope in every heart. Indeed. If there's one issue, and this is where we're going to test Mr. Burnham's philosophy here, if there's one issue, of course, that drives voters absolutely nuts around the bend, of course we know it's immigration, not immigration itself. And, you know, we get the idea that there is a level of immigration. You bring people in. You know, I do want a tasty neurosurgeon operating in our NHS theatres, and I don't actually care where they come from as long as they're good, and if we need them, bring them on. But that's kind of it. It's that sort of territory. So sometimes you need an immigration policy. We understand that. But the sense that the system has become completely detached from common sense is now out there. I don't think anyone anywhere, even if you're a mad old left-winger, you'd have to say at a quiet time, you'd have to go, this is a bit nuts. 50-odd, 60-odd, 70-odd thousand people floating over on a rubber boat every year? Seriously? We know what's happened, and when someone convicted of appalling crimes can serve a lengthy sentence, lose British citizenship and yet still remain in the UK because of decades-old legal protections, people inevitably ask a simple question. Who exactly is this system working for? And it's a fair point. Who is it working for? That's all you really have to ask. Recent reports, of course, surrounding the release, and he's now been released, convicted Rochdale grooming gang ringleader Shabir Ahmed, have brought frustration sharply back into focus. Legal barriers have so far prevented his deportation, despite political calls to everyone to explore all available options. And we know Burnham wrote that tweet yesterday. Here comes Andy promising that nothing is off the table. Fine words. But you know what? British politics has never suffered from a shortage of fine words. It's fine actions we need. That's the real test on whether he can sound tough in a headline. It's not that's the easy bit. It's whether he's prepared to rewrite laws, challenge legal orthodoxy, and accept the inevitable backlash from campaign groups, lawyers, and international critics. And when we are talking about Andy Burnham, remember, Andy Burnham, the man who will fly into Downing Street in a couple of weeks' time, and we know he's already told us His philosophy is really simple.
Good growth in every postcode, hope in every heart. That's our mission.
Hope in every heart. We've got hope you can sort this out, Andy Burnham. Is Burnham the man that's going to solve the insanity of immigration policy in this country? Can he actually do it? Every government eventually discovers that public confidence depends on the belief that the rules make sense. If Burnham can restore that principle, he'll achieve something that none of his predecessors have ever managed. If not, he's just going to simply become the latest Prime Minister to discover that Britain's immigration system doesn't bend easily, even for the person holding the keys to number 10. So he can tell us this all he likes.
Good growth in every postcode, hope in every heart.
Hope
That's
in
our
every...
mission.
Yes, your mission. I mean, understand, you're a lovely man. You're a lovely boy, really are. But can he pull it off? 0344 499 1000. They would tell us, of course, no, because he's got these laws, right? Well, sod the laws. I mean, this is the government. So we've got a Prime Minister. Downing Street has said this is, you know, a terrible state of affairs, speaking almost on behalf of the Prime Minister. Andy Burnham put up that tweet yesterday saying that the philosophy of this is all over the place and we need to address it. He's going to talk to the Home Office and the Foreign Office. Shabana Mahmood thinks it's terrible. So the Prime Minister thinks it's terrible. The incoming Prime Minister thinks it's terrible. The Home Secretary thinks it's terrible. The Foreign Secretary thinks it's terrible. I reckon that's enough people in important positions to go, we can do something about it. I was reminded as well, Twana Jamal, who was a convicted people smuggler, once described as the godfather of the French immigration camps, living in Leicestershire, working, it seems, illegally because he's trying to claim asylum. There's another one. They know where the bloke is. The BBC found him, for God's sake. Go round his house, say, hey, Twana, how you doing? My name's Mick. I work for the SAS. See that Chinook over there? You're coming with us. And away you go. You just remove somebody. I know it's not that simple, but we need that sort of vibe, that kind of feel. 0344 499 1000. David Wooding is with us. Columnist with The Sun, political journalist of many years' experience. It's kind of interesting, Dave, isn't it? You know this from covering politics for so many years. Things that can't... I'm always fascinated by this. Oh, it can't be done because there's a little rule in place. And you think, well, can you not just change that rule? And I know the principle is, well, if you just allow Prime Minister to just change the rule when it suited them, then let's all move to North Korea, because that's what they... So I get that principle. But there are some things, irredeemable realities of something gone horribly wrong. And this is one of them.
Yeah, it's the will and the use of the law and legislation. This government is run by a lawyer. The Prime Minister is a lawyer. There are several people in the Cabinet, and there have been in previous governments, who are all lawyers. So you'd think they'd be able to draft a law that would stop criminals like this staying in the country. You'd think they'd have the nous to see where the loopholes are when they draft law. And they've got all these armies of legislative, legal brains in the civil service who help draft all the laws, yet they always seem to leave more holes than you would in a sieve.
When the whole COVID thing happened and they had to make new laws quite quickly, I mean, they did it in sort of half an hour and suddenly it was all signed off and everybody had a sort of cursory vote or whatever, and in some cases no vote at all, because there are things that can circumnavigate, of course, a parliamentary vote. So there's all of that. There must be a mechanism in place so you get the most senior lawyers in the country, and in the Home Office they have some very well-paid lawyers, in the Foreign Office some very well-paid lawyers, in the Department of Justice some very well-paid lawyers. There's hundreds of these people all over the place. Bring them all in. The Prime Minister, he's a lawyer. He was the former head of the DPP. Shabana Mahmood, she's bright, she's switched on. She can have a look at this. Andy Burnham, he's the next Prime Minister. Can they not just all sit in a room and go, do we all agree? Yep, fine, bang, stamp, done. Thank you very much. See you next week.
Well, you'd think so. You really would think so. I mean, we do it in our occupation. You know, you want to do a feature on the TV programme. You decide you're going to do it, and by the time you go on air, it's done.
It's done. Unless you work at the BBC, of course. Then it goes through a whole system for about 2 years.
Can you write a piece on the history of the Middle East crisis? If I don't know about it, I have to find out about it darn quickly and write it.
Absolutely.
And you'd think that these people legislating for us would have the wit to work out where the pitfalls are when they draft it, and yet. And the other astonishing thing about this case, Shabir Ahmed, is that they told the victims, his many victims, that he will not, as soon as he comes out of prison, he will be sent back to Pakistan. What's happened is that, one, that wasn't the case. Either they didn't know that when they said it, or they were lying, because he can't be sent out because of this law that was made in 1971, the Immigration Act, that said that he couldn't be kicked out. And secondly, even if he could, Pakistan said they won't take him back.
Yeah, because there was a couple of his cohorts, that I say cohorts is probably too kind a word, but his co-paedophiles and offenders that had tried this as well in the grooming gang, but they'd renounced their Pakistani citizenship, so Pakistan couldn't take them back.
And it's absolutely appalling, Ian, because this man, it's going to cost a fortune. When he gets out, and he's being released early under the early release scheme, he's done, what, 12 years out of 14 years out of 22. He's going to get out. We're going to spend thousands of pounds on putting me in accommodation where he can be watched 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're going to have to make sure that all the victims are safe. They're going to have him tagged. I mean, there are so many things. He's going to have to be monitored day and night. This is costing a fortune to allow him to stay here. And at the same time, all those poor victims, and they were treated appallingly. Some of them were raped several times, drugged and raped. Yeah. And they're going to live in absolute fear. It's absolutely sickening.
It's really sickening, and it's also just unfathomable, Dave, that there must be something within the legal constitution that says, you know, in the event of this happening, we can change a law. And even if you had to take it to Parliament, I can't imagine they'd struggle to get that through, would they? We're just going to do a little tweak to this Commonwealth law. So retrospective alteration of a law so this person can be deported. And you might imagine that would be enough, but apparently that's not even doable.
And do you know what, Ian? This is probably the tip of the iceberg, because this is one we know about. How many cases like this are going on that we don't know about? Yeah. There must be dozens and scores of them.
Indeed. Well, there's also just another thing to add into this, of course. The people smuggler who was jailed in France for 5 years, described as one of the most successful people smugglers ever caught, earning up to 100,000 quid a week moving migrants across the Channel. Now, he was found by the BBC living in Leicestershire. I mean, this stuff is just bonkers. Apparently claiming asylum and working illegally under a false name. Then the BBC tracked him down. Have a listen.
Why are you claiming asylum? Why do you want to be in Britain?
I've been here for a long, long time.
Yeah, why? Why do you want to be in this country?
Because I was not safe at my country and then I came to this country.
Right, but you came to this country via France, where you spent years people smuggling. You led one of the biggest people smuggling networks.
I never...
We know your past. We know your past.
Well, if you know that, there was... Just 1 second, I'll be back.
Well, no.
To you guys.
No, I want to talk to you. We've waited a long time to talk to you.
Okay.
We've seen you driving around in this country in a car.
So,
tell me what licence you've got. What valid...
For what?
For driving around in this country in a...
I'm not driving.
We've got photograph evidence and video evidence of you driving.
Well, for what?
I mean, fair play to the BBC doing what they're meant to be doing, and that's utilising, you know, proper journalism to track somebody like this down, and they did, and that's the current state of play. But again, I mean, they know where he is. Just go around there and get him. And sorry, mate, you're wrong, and you ain't meant to be here.
He's apparently running 2 shops called Candy Corner, and they're probably a front for God knows what else. And there's supposed to be 20 other people like that in the same network.
There'll be many.
Apparently he had so many aliases, this guy, that he used to write the name he was using on a given day inside his baseball cap so he could pull it off and remember
remember the name that he was using.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
I mean, it is extraordinary. And, you know, he was charging 4 or 5 grand a time for people to come over. So he was not only a boat migrant himself, but he was facilitating dozens, hundreds and hundreds of people more. He's driving a BMW without a licence as well.
I mean, so he's obviously got money. I don't know how he only served 5 years in a French jail. That seems awfully lenient compared to the...
Because they probably thought he'd get on the first boats the minute they let him out.
Well, indeed.
Off their hands.
Prosecutors said, as you know, rightly said, they're 100,000 quid a week moving illegal migrants across the Channel. But, of course, as you rightly say, Dave, he's not the only one. The BBC investigation found more than 20 active smugglers who've reached the UK, some with overseas convictions, some claiming asylum using false names. So we know there's 20 people out there right now that they know who they are, or certainly a BBC journalist found out who they were. Well, that's when you send the ice boys in, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, guys, you know, you don't come under any humanitarian case here whatsoever. We know this for a fact. Come with us. Again, there's the Chinook, there's the SAS lads. They're going to take you to you're not going to be harmed, we're not going to beat you, we're not going to drop you in the sea or a lagoon filled with alligators or anything like that. You're going to go back to somewhere, and we're going to facilitate that right now.
And this is why people keep saying the country's broken. It's probably not that the country's broken, it's probably that the political system is broken.
Yeah.
And so many things like this are going on, which is why politics is fragmented and people are looking at the Greens, Reform, all sorts of other parties, and why we don't know who's going to be in Parliament, who's going to be in government next time, because everybody is divided on who they can vote for to fix this problem.
Yeah.
And it's not just this problem, it's every other problem. I mean, we're in debt, there's no defence, nothing seems to work.
Yeah.
And you can understand the frustration of many people who pay their taxes, go to work every day, doing their best. They're struggling to make ends meet because inflation's raging and the cost of living's going up through the roof, and they see these people coming in, like the story about migrants moving into £250,000 houses on newly built houses while they're struggling to get onto the housing ladder themselves, and people just feel totally let down by everybody who's running the country.
Well, is Andy Burnham the person that's going to solve all of this? And that would have sounded like a bit of a wacky question a couple of days ago, but he did put that tweet out yesterday. I don't think anybody disagrees with what he tweeted, but of course he's not yet the Prime Minister. He can't do anything about it, has zero authority. I mean, he wrote it as if he was the serving Prime Minister. I'm talking to the Home Office and the Foreign Office. He used all that sort of speech, didn't he? And of course he's going to be in a few weeks' time. Is he the bloke? Literally, Andy Burnham, you're looking going, Andy, really? No, he's just a sort of professional lefty and has no intention of going anywhere. Could we be proved wrong by Prime Minister Andy Burnham? And remember, Andy Burnham is a man of simple words but very deep-rooted philosophy.
Good growth in every postcode, hope in every heart. That's our mission.
Hope in every heart. What a nice, nice man. This is Talk.
on to the next. There we go. That was Andy Burnham just going through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense. Because if he'd got...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mike in Plymouth says, everyone is appalled this guy being released. Why didn't the parole board step in before his release? Who signed this off? Well, again, it comes down, I suppose, Dave Wooding's still with us, to just people go, well, it's the system, isn't it? He's jailed. The judgment wasn't that he's jailed for life. That wasn't a minimum term. So he's jailed on the same basis as anybody else, and that is that once you've served X amount of time, 2/3, whatever it happens to be, you are entitled to parole. And if the parole board can't prove that you are still a threat, then you have to go with the original judgment. I mean, that's how it works,
yeah.
right? I mean, that's the system we have. And, you know, and look, we all do, we pick and choose certain cases if they suit us. And, you know, but something like this, I think everybody could agree, shows where the system fails.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the problem with this case. It's all well and good Andy Burnham saying, I will... nothing's off the table to sort this one out.
Yeah.
Victims should come first. I believe this vile man should be kicked out of Britain. He will be Prime Minister in just over 2 weeks. People will now expect him to deliver on that. But the problem is, it's not as easy as he says, because one, like you rightly say, Ian, the law is that you serve a certain amount of your sentence. You serve 14 years of 22, and he's out. So you can't put him back in prison.
Yeah.
Two, you can't kick him out of the country because the law won't allow that.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can't apply it respectively.
Yeah.
And thirdly, Pakistan don't want him back. So what is Andy Burnham going to do? And he's now raised expectations. And not only has he raised expectations to do that, but people will be expecting him to sort out the defence. There's a 28 billion black hole in defence. And Keir Starmer's left another 4.7 billion there.
Yeah.
And then there's the migration crisis. There's the £3 trillion in debt. There's the welfare budget. Bloated like hell, 333
and he's
billion.
opted for this job,
and he's taken that job. So I mean, he can't just smile and tell us how he likes chips and gravy and sort the country out. He's got a big job to do, and the expectation will be. I actually loved watching his speech because you talk about hope in your heart and all that, but you know, it was all positive. It reminded me of when Boris Johnson was coming in, and we saw, oh great, you know,
sunny uplands and everything.
Now but you know, the minute he crosses that threshold, his popularity is not going to go upwards unless he delivers something, and it's going to be really tough for him.
It's just a bit worth reminding of his little mantra again, because you picked up something in the break that I hadn't spotted. Here it is.
Good growth in every postcode, hope in every heart. That's our mission.
Hope in Every Heart is a lyric from a very well-known song, You'll Never Walk Alone. Now, it's sung in all sorts of situations, but most famously in football for a particular team. Dave, I think you should pick up this story because we're talking about your lot.
Yes, it's with hope in your heart. It comes from the Rodgers and Hammerstein's classic You'll Never Walk Alone, which is sung on the Kop at Anfield every home game. One thing I do know is that Andy Burnham is an Everton fan.
He's an Everton fan, so quoting lyrics from a Liverpool anthem, basically.
Yeah. And he also quoted John Lennon because it started off with "Imagine."
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was a little bit of a John Lennon moment when he was making that speech. You know, imagine a world where There's growth in every postcode, hope in every heart.
Yeah.
Imagine all the people living together in harmony, and me coming in as Prime Minister
And
and fixing everything.
I thought Burnham's wife changing her name to Yoko was a bit of a push on that one, wasn't it? We began to see through it. You've just thrown a question up that I'd never thought of, but does anyone know the football allegiances of the Beatles?
That I don't think. I mean,
I've never known
there were
that.
lots of rumours that one or two of them were Everton fans, and Paul McCartney's always been very straight about, like in both. And I don't know. I think they both went to art college. John and Paul went to art college, and I think they were arty types who weren't really on the cop. They were too busy playing with the guitars. Not like Andy Burnham, who loves to strum a guitar and loves to go to the football match.
That's because he's an ordinary bloke.
Oh, he's an ordinary bloke, yeah.
Yeah.
He likes chips and gravy.
He does. Let's move. Let's move for breakfast. Let's move to this. Harry Kane dragged England back from the brink last night, scoring twice in the final 15 minutes to complete a 2-1 comeback over DR Congo. Talk Sports said it all.
Balling towards Kane. Kane on the turn. Oh, what a goal! Captain has bailed them out of an enormous hole here. England 2, DR Congo 1.
You see, I was quite relaxed about this. I mean, I wasn't relaxed before we scored, but when people look back at it, all the punditry now is, well, you know, England only just about got to be better than that if you're going to beat Mexico. Only just about did it. I'm thinking, hang on a second. Other teams in the last batch, the last 32, we've had a couple of penalty shootouts. We've taken it far more precariously than England last night. This is just football, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it was. They didn't half give us a scare though, didn't they?
Just a bit.
They were trailing from the seventh minute.
7th minute.
And the goalkeeper played out of his skin. I mean, he was a great goalkeeper.
Yeah.
I think we must have been behind for until the last 15 minutes, and even then we thought, oh no, this is going to go to extra time and possibly penalties. But that second goal of Harry Kane's was just incredible. I don't think anybody else could have scored that.
He's like he is a machine, isn't he?
He's overtaken Pele's goal scoring record.
I know he'd overtaken Lineker's, but Pele's as well. That's all right, isn't it? You'd take that to the grave, that one, wouldn't you?
Yeah, listening to the commentary there, something I did was, because I don't know about you, but I'm fed up with listening to Wayne Rooney and Alan Shearer.
Yeah.
So turn the volume down on your TV and put Talk Sport.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way. Much more exciting commentary.
Yeah.
And you can watch the game and get. Sometimes he's a little bit ahead of the shot, so you can.
That's right. Yeah.
But nevertheless, it's much more fun.
It's a lot of fun. What about this story? Death Day. There's the headline. This is what researchers are calling yesterday, the moment deaths began to outnumber births in England and Wales. It will happen every year from 2026, with 450,000 more deaths than births projected over the next decade. There is, of course, one very obvious remedy.
I did it.
What?
The first response pregnancy test.
Well, I showered?
In 10 minutes. And it's this easy to see. Blue for yes, clear for no.
Well?
Get dressed. Dad?
Dad?
Dad! Dad! Yes, that was... there's so many places I could have gone with that ad, but let's not. We've got a problem. People are dying and they're not procreating. We're encouraging people. We're already getting messages through suggesting there has been possibly some very positive horizontal gymnastics going on around the country while we're on air, so we can up the numbers, Dave.
Maybe there'll be a baby boom if England win the World Cup. Maybe that's a good reason for England to go on and win the World Cup. Because
I think it's your voice that's doing it, Dave.
Absolutely. Well, I'll be a full-time job here to give you bedtime chats. No, it's more. The number of births now is 1.39 per couple, and it used to be 2.1. So we're sort of having one child instead of two on average.
Yes.
Which means that the birth rate is collapsing, and because we're an older population, there's more people dying. So, as you say, there's more. I think July the 1st was seen as the first day when more people died in the year than were born.
Yes.
But here's something, Ian. More people, the population will still grow. It will grow by 17 million by 2034. And that is because immigration.
17 more million people in the next 8 years.
Yeah, that's I'm misreading. 1.7 million.
1.7 million.
I'm going to say it's a ridiculous figure.
Yes.
1.7 million.
1.7 million in 8 years.
8 years. So that is because we'll probably need more people to come in because there's not enough young people coming in.
Not enough people to actually go and do the jobs.
And also the ratio of workers to pensioners is also changing. So
Yes.
there's more pensioners than there are workers. I don't know what the ratio is, but that's changing.
Yeah.
And it means that a child of 8 today, if that carries on, will have to work until they are 75 in order to make the economy work in terms of pensions and working.
That's more than the population of Liverpool, by the way.
Yeah.
The increase.
It's staggering.
That is absolutely staggering. So we need more people to get at it. And while we're on air, that's it. That's all you've got to think about. Already people coming through. Helen says, got on the dating apps as soon as you came on air. Half an hour later, I'm up the stick. So there you go. It's already starting to work.
Well, if you want, I'll give you my Twitter account.
I think you should do, yes. Or, of course, you could buy one of the best-selling books, Dave Wooding's Guide to Procreation, which is...
Well, I'm above 1.3.
Flying off the shelves.
I'm already above 1.39, so I've done my little bit.
Fantastic. Dave, good to see you.
Always
Dave
a
Wooding
pleasure.
with us here on Talk 0344 499 1000. Thoughts on that? And, of course, Burnham. Will Burnham, of all people, will Andy Burnham solve the insanity of our immigration policy? Lines are open. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, as you've been hearing today, within the last 30 or 40 minutes, Shabir Ahmed, the ringleader of the Rochdale grooming gang and convicted of 30 child rape offences, walks free. Andy Burnham is demanding deportation. The government is promising all foreign criminals will face removal. But a loophole in a 50-year-old law means he's going nowhere. Is Andy Burnham the man to sort this? Let's firstly speak to Dr. S. Chelvan, Head of Immigration, Public Law and Civil Liberties at 33 Bedford Road Chambers. Chelvan, good afternoon to you. Nice to have you with us. Good to see you again as well. Look, you're an immigration lawyer. It doesn't mean to say you don't have understandings of all manner of issues around this. You're not always just about defending somebody, but surely you would agree with Andy Burnham's point here. This man is vile, should be deported, and the law at the moment, as it stands, needs to change.
OK, first of all, I don't defend refugees. They're not criminals. I represent refugees in their appeals and their applications. Okay. But the first point I want to say is that clearly all our thoughts are primarily with the victims. You know, this really has to be very important that we need to look through this lens of how we address these issues, remembering that the victims are the ones who suffered the most in relation to this. Secondly, it's not a loophole. Section 7 of the Immigration Act 1971 has been around since 1st of January 1973. And the last time Parliament looked at this provision was in October 2017. So it's not as if it's an old law.
It's not surprised anybody who knows that terrain, right?
Yeah, and in 2018, our British courts, the upper tribunal, made it quite clear in a case called Charles that this is, you know, a safeguarding issue in relation to the, so not in relation, I'm being very careful, it's a provision which ensures that those people who came to the UK prior to the 1st of January 1973 and were not facing deportation for at least 5 years following that, being here, have a right to abode. So even if their British nationality is taken away, as it was with Sabir Ahmed in January 2017, they have a right of abode. That means they're non-deportable. So with Andy Burnham, who is expected to be the new Prime Minister later on this year, we have a provision saying, well, look, I want to change the law. But the problem with this, Ian, is that your viewers want to know is that what does the law say about deportation of foreign nationals, not just for Sabir Ahmed, but for everyone? And there's a bright line. The bright line is that we in the United Kingdom say that no individual, and that means if you're a terrorist, if you're a sex offender, if you're Joe Bloggs, yeah, no individual is sent back to the country where they'll suffer torture or inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. So I haven't looked at his case, clearly I have not instructed, but if we look at the situation in Pakistan, we look at the way the police treat individuals, even if they're questioned, yeah, that we know from the country reports that the police are very much well known to use torture to try and question an individual. So let's pretend Sabir Ahmed is at the immigration officer's desk in Islamabad or Karachi, and he enters the country, and the immigration officer is going to ask him questions. And how do people ask questions? They usually take them away to ask questions and detain them. So the question is, during that period of detention, because he clearly won't be let through the immigration, during that period of detention, will he suffer torture? And if there's a real risk of that torture or ill treatment, whatever Andy Burnham and Parliament does while legislating changing Section 7, he's not deportable.
So he could end up in Pakistan in a situation where he is brutalised and tortured. What's the downside?
The downside is that on that basis of that assessment, he can't be deported.
So you are not. The law at the moment has a humanitarian component to it that will stop no matter how bad somebody is, terrorist, sex offender. We retain our principles. And we will not allow somebody to be released into the custody of a regime that could brutalise or torture that person.
Yes.
Right. That's the bit that needs changing, isn't it, then?
No, because we can't change it. Because even Chris Phelps agreed last year when it came to the Zimbabwe case that you can't tinker with Article 3 of the European Convention of Human Rights because it's an absolute right. So in last November, our Home Secretary stood up in Parliament looking at the components. So there's ill treatment, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. Okay. And she wants to look at Article 3, degrading treatment. So in May this year, in Romania, because Romania had the chair of the Council of Europe, the ministers got together and put what's called the CHINSMO, I apologise for my Romanian pronunciation, the CHINSMO Declaration on the 10th of May, which says for migrants, we're having a problem with Article 8 of the European Convention, when there's a right to family and private life, and Article 3. After that declaration, last week, the Home Office announced changes to the new immigration asylum bill, well, the changes is regarding the balancing exercise for foreign deportees, Article 8. But guess what? They weren't able to look at Article 3 through that legislation because you can't legislate in the UK for that.
But so that would go to the ECHR. That's an issue for them. But would we not all?
The court, and the court makes it quite clear. Even if you're a terrorist,
yes,
you have absolute protection.
But this is obviously. I mean, bearing in mind we're in the times we are in now, and you said it was looked at in 2017 or something like that, I think.
Yes.
But nonetheless, I mean, we are left with the irredeemable reality that somebody who has raped 30 children is in this country, and the reason we can't release them is because or send them to another country, Pakistan in this case, is because they might get some bad treatment at customs. Does anybody other than well, let me just ask you, Shelby, can I just finish the question?
That's very important. Okay.
I was just going to say, other than you, is there anybody that you know gives a hoot about that if somebody has a bit of rough treatment at Pakistani police station?
Yeah. It's far too simple to put that. Okay, so let's look at the issues here. Okay, the point being here is that it's not about, well, they may get, there's serious grounds of real risk that they will be tortured. Yeah, and that is anybody who is put into detention and further questioning by the Pakistani authorities on arrival to Pakistan. Okay, so that is the basic line. So that applies to any individual who's deported or removed to Pakistan. If there's a real risk of that torture, we don't deport them or remove them. That is the law. That is a basic premise. So we can't change the law on that because it is an international treaty. And the court has made it quite clear, and this government have accepted by their own actions, that notwithstanding Shabima Mahmood, our Home Secretary's announcement last November that she wanted to change Article 3 on degrading treatment, is that after the Chismo Declaration, that they've accepted that the only way they can get legislation through on the invasion is regarding Article 8 or Article 3. So it's not about caring a hoot. It's that if we stop protecting under absolute violations, against ill treatment under this sort of belief. And remember, your viewers want to know, under the English common law, forget about the European Convention of Human Rights, forget about the UN Convention Against Torture, forget about the International Civil and Political Covenant. You have English common law, 1472. Sir John Fortescue says, in praise of the laws of England, torture is against the common law. So it's part of English common law. Wave St George's flag. It's part of our tradition.
But there are times.
Whatever you do, you cannot do.
So this is like a completely immovable situation for the rest of time. This is locked in to every legal. I mean, you must know. You know this as a lawyer. Things change, Shelvin. Things change.
Not with respect to torture.
Well, suspected torture. I mean, that is such a wide.
It's not suspected,
a wide accusation. You would suspected torture. I mean, not torture, but suspected he might get a bit of a rough time at a police station.
No, that's nonsense. He's not rough time. When we've looked at the case law, we've had case law of, for example, a Zimbabwean national being sent back and beaten with sticks. We have examples in relation to Sri Lankan cases of refugees, those who've had risk profiles, of being detained and persecuted and tortured by the Sri Lankan authorities on return. I'm not talking about criminal deportation. Okay, so it's not just may get roughed up. There is serious grounds, a real risk.
Why? Okay, let me just be brutal in putting it this way. Whilst I understand that law and the labyrinthine world of constructing law and all the rest of it can be complex, and there are often good reasons for that, and we can't always cherry pick the bits we like. I understand, or notwithstanding all of that, there will be some cases where we are allowed to say this law doesn't work in this case. It's a child rapist. He's a man who has committed the most horrendous sex offences against children and in charge of a grooming gang where many, many others did the same thing. I don't care if this man wakes up one morning with his testicles in a vice somewhere in the south of Pakistan, or whether he ends up spending the rest of his life in a jail over there. I don't care about that. Why is my position wrong? Why is my position inauthentic?
No, it's not inauthentic. You clearly have the anger all of us feel in relation to an individual who's caused this sort of crime. You're not alone. And as I said, I'm not here to provide my personal opinions. I'm here to just share what the law says, as you know.
Fair.
Well, over 5 years, we've worked, we've had these conversations. Yep. I'm not talking about my personal opinions. I'm talking about what the law says. So the position is that there are certain key principles we in Britain have not only enjoyed but protected. We've gone to war against the taking away of those principles by other regimes and authoritarian organizations. We travel the world expecting those minimum standards of other nations. So we have to ensure that we safeguard and ensure that we reach those minimum standards ourselves before we go around the world as a world policeman, expecting other countries to do so as well. It's not an issue of this is a child sex offender or this is a terrorist. It's just about how we treat anybody and everybody. It's called the rule of law. It's what makes Britain great, and that's what generations have gone to war and given their lives for.
Chelvan, great to have you on. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. S. Chelvan, Head of Immigration, Public Law and Civil Liberties, 33 Bedford Road, Chambers. I appreciate he's merely outlining the law. One of the issues, I think, in this country, one of the problems we have in this country is that there's lots of people who are very good at outlaw. It's the law. Look, it's the law. It was 1578 and it was 1972 and it was 2007 and they said this and we have to protect that. I don't care if this character does end up in a dark hole somewhere in a back street of Karachi. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother. I know we don't make law based on emotions. There will be some cases where we literally say, if you want to remove the emotion and just look at the logistics here, are we prepared to spend tens and tens of thousands of pounds for the rest of time to keep our eye on this man? Let's speak with Tom Jones, Deputy Online Editor at The Critic. Tom, good afternoon to you. You probably heard our last guest there was telling us what the law says. We've got a lot of things we can't do in this country because of what the law says. Smacks to me that we might want to change some laws.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible to just go in and change laws, and I appreciate that he was saying these things about the need to protect average people from basically a massive overextension by state power. I did find it a little churlish to say that we'd gone to war to fight for protections against things like this. I don't think we've ever gone to war to defend the rights of child molesters, but there you go.
Yeah. Which is completely fair enough, and which is the point I was trying to drive at with him, is that sometimes social, cultural, political appetites do change. We find ourselves in a different place from where we might have been 50 years ago when a law was made. I mean, I think if you go through all sorts of elements of law, whether it's commercial law, employment law, marital law, all sorts of things, you'll find where there's been a shift in expectations, a shift in how our country operates, and laws have changed to reflect that. I would argue, and I hope reasonably, that we're in that place now. You know, we have a degree of people, foreign prisoners in our jails, that it seems almost impossible to get rid of. This guy is a particularly high-profile case and his crimes are particularly heinous. So, yes, things do change. Well, in 1971, I doubt whether the prison system was reflective in this kind of way as it is today.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the major shift that we've seen in the last 50 years is obviously the demographic shift.
Yeah.
And that's fundamentally what this is about, because I think what we're seeing here is an extension of English common law out to include, people who have dual citizenship, who can be sent elsewhere to serve their sentences that people don't want in this country, I think quite rightly, frankly. And so what we are having is an argument basically here about whether these people deserve English common law at home or whether they can be sent back. And frankly, the English common law system is not one that was ever really designed to be exported abroad. And so I think there is a very clear case to simply send foreign criminals back.
Sure.
And in this case, it's actually not a case, rarely so far, of Pakistan refusing to accept deportations. It's a simple change in UK domestic law that means we can send them back.
What about the politics of this then? Because Andy Burnham has put out a tweet, as you will have seen, essentially saying this is unacceptable, this vile man should be deported. I've been in touch with the Home Office and the Foreign Office, and obviously we know he's going to be the Prime Minister. He's not really in a position to contact them any more than any other member of Parliament or member of the public, for that matter. He's got no current sway. He set himself a pretty tough precedent there, hasn't he? Because if that's what he's saying now, he's going to be held to that tweet.
He is. I actually think this is quite interesting because you use the word precedent, but actually about 4 years ago when Burnham was just Mayor of Greater Manchester, he called on the Conservative government to do everything within its power to deport grooming gang members. So this is actually something that he has touched on before. I think obviously with his position as Mayor of Greater Manchester, that covers a lot of the areas that were real hotspots for the grooming gangs, places like Oldham and Rochdale. And so I think he's probably got his finger more on the pulse with the public outrage about this than most politicians. And I think definitely this is an area where politics has basically caught up with the public. I think Burnham has got ahead of the curve, as I say, because he's been closer to the ground. And so basically I think here politics has caught up with the public outrage. I don't think there's anything else he could have said, but it's interesting that he is committed to this already.
It's going to be interesting that, I mean, nobody can really identify what kind of Labour leader Mr Burnham might be, because he's been a bit Blairy in his time, he's been a bit Corbyn-y in his time. It's quite difficult to know. And when you're kind of the mayor of Greater Manchester, your position is sort of quite managerial in many respects. Whether you're Tory or Labour, you'd have probably still painted the buses yellow. It would have made very little difference. But with this, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, could it really turn out that Andy Burnham, a man who's currently selling himself as a sort of mostly somebody of the centre left and just an ordinary bloke, is going to turn out to be the equivalent of the bloke that runs ICE over there in America?
I honestly don't think we'll know until we see what he does with his cabinet. I think basically Shabana Mahmood is the key figure here. I think she's a very useful figure for Labour because she gets brickbats thrown at her by the progressive left. And therefore, she's actually quite a useful figure to have in the cabinet for a Labour leader who is, as Starmer was, constantly fighting off accusations about a two-tier state or problems about immigration. She's a very useful figure to have at the side. So it'll be interesting to see, I think, what he does with Mahmood and what he does with her reforms. He's already suggested that he might want to water down some of her reforms, particularly around indefinite leave to remain. That was on the back of a rebellion led by Angela Rayner, and then he's backing her up. So it's very difficult to telegraph to see where he's coming with this. He hasn't really made any public interventions on kind of grand approaches to immigration, and so I think we just have to kind of keep reading the tea leaves until he decides to tell us.
We will see. It's not going to be dull, is it? Tom, great to have you with us again. Thank you. Tom Jones, Deputy Online Editor at The Critic. Over to you. Could Burnham solve the insanity of our immigration policy? Not just this story, but all of the other kind of weird and wonderful things we see in that area. 0344 499 1000.
Old news. On to the next. There we go. That was Andy Burnham. Just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Many people making a similar point to Steve Fuller on Twitter. Pretty sure my grandfathers did not go to war to protect a child rapist. Yeah. Which is rather the point I was trying to make to the lawyer, that things do change. Laws can be crafted for, all good reasons at the time, but there was always going to be that's how laws are made, aren't they? When circumstances change, you put that back to the law-making system and say, OK, this has changed. Culturally, we've got a shift in appetites in terms of what we expect or what we think. We have foreign criminals en masse. We never had that X amount of decades ago, so now we need to look at it. Lee's in Doncaster. Lee, is Andy Burnham the saviour on this one? Afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian. There's a well-known expression about a Burton's window and on Saturday morning and taking your clothes off or something, and I think that that would be the case. I'll be pleasantly surprised if Andy Burnham does something about this and does actually get the result that we all want. Interesting that your guest actually took away a lot of the uncertainties that I was going to throw in and ask, in that what's going to happen to this guy, under what conditions is he released? Because didn't you say he was on parole?
Yeah, so I think he's going to a kind of sort of, not like a halfway house, if you like. Yeah. So he'll be living under some sort of guard, he'll be tagged. So there's a massive expense attached to this as well, Lee, that you and me are going to be paying for. Yeah. And if he's on parole, do we have the capability of acting in such a way that we can send him abroad to complete the rest of his sentence on parole? And under what conditions would his parole be rescinded? If he commits a crime over in Pakistan, is he then going to come to Britain to be tried in British courts, to be told, actually, you've done something wrong over there, so we're having you back over here in our court, in our prisons? Good point.
It's difficult, but the fundamental thing is, I think that Andy Burnham, 3 words, because he likes his words, doesn't he? Not nasty enough. He's not the right sort of person. He's Starmer Mark II, in my opinion, and we're going to have more of the same. Lots of talk, no action, and if he does come up with something that is positive, that we all want to happen, like I said earlier, I shall be pleasantly surprised, Ian.
And I would share that surprise with you as well. Lee, great call to start us off. Thank you, mate, for that. Have a great weekend. 0344 499 1000 is where you will find us. You can message 87222. You can also, by the way, drop us a voice note on that first number too. This cretin will get legal aid, says Sarah. I can't get legal aid. Why the hell am I paying for a vile foreign rapist to get legal aid? Well, he'll be guarded and protected, and there'll be some level of scrutiny, I would imagine, over this fella for a long time. It's a very expensive protest, but the kind of morality of it, of, do we want this kind of person in the country? We all know the answer. Lines are open, 0344 499 1000. Let's get the news at 2.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, good afternoon. Welcome back. Home of Common Sense. So much to get through. We are, of course, responding to many things, including on the more positive, happy side of life. England breaking that 60-year World Cup curse last night by coming from behind to beat DR Congo 2-1. It was an absolute beauty in the end. The first time three Lions have overturned a deficit at World Cup since winning it back in the 1960s, with Harry Kane, of course, sending fans dreaming of what might be coming this summer. It's a tough one in the next few days, but I think we all know that. But it's doable. I mean, it's not like you've got to play Mexico like on their own territory in one of the stadiums they've hardly ever lost in their entire exit. Oh, no, it is. That's exactly what's going to be happening. Good luck, Harry and the boys. Also this afternoon, Andy Burnham has demanded that ministers exhaust every option to deport Rochdale grooming gang leader Shabir Ahmed, who walks free today, already has in the last couple of hours, despite 30 child rape convictions, as questions mount over whether Britain's next Prime Minister can untangle the country's broken immigration system. I mean, this is... Look, sometimes something crops up that may not, as our lawyer said earlier, well, the law says the law. Change the law, then. There is something clearly inherently wrong. And what about this? Deaths have begun to outnumber births in England and Wales for the first time, with researchers marking yesterday as Death Day and warning that Britain has entered a new demographic era with 450,000 more deaths than births predicted over the next decade. And this isn't just some kind of fun fact. There are huge economic considerations associated with a country that is not procreating at the required rate, which is why we've set up an initiative today, getting loads of response on this already, for people to go for it while we're on air. I mean, look, normally, if I were to say, it wouldn't be my business as to whether you and your partner decide to while we're on air, and I don't know whether this is the right kind of backdrop or the ambience, a debate with lawyers and politicians and journalists, but whatever does it for you, frankly. We just need more people. It's as simple as that. Our lines are open. This is Talk. One comes in here, warning, Burnham will be Big Brother. Yeah, well, there is always that thought. The overreach of government appears to be in the DNA of Andy Burnham, but he did write that tweet saying, you know, this guy should be deported, which was interesting because we will hold him to that very line when these situations crop up again, and they will. Isabel Oakeshott joins us, Talk's international editor. Afternoon to you, Isabel. Look, over the years, I don't know how many times you and I have had these kind of discussions, or here's somebody who's done something so horrific, it's almost unspeakable, unimaginable horror, crimes that this awful man, this horrific character, has carried out on at least 30 children. These are brutal rapes. He was part of a gang, the ringleader of a gang, so taking into account the other offenders in that group, I mean, this goes into hundreds, if not thousands. And yet, we are going to pay to keep the man alive, fed, warm, cosy and safe in this country. Because that's what the law says, Isabel.
And there's that old expression, isn't there? The law's an ass.
Yeah.
The law can be an ass. And sometimes you've just got to change the law. And I know many of our contributors today have just made that point. You know, law is in a constant state of evolution.
Yep.
And so many people today have been saying, well, if the law requires us to keep hold of somebody who has done these heinous things, then we just have to change the law. That's what Parliament's there for. It's perfectly possible to do so. And I think this has to be a test case. It's a test of resolve. I'd be interesting to see, hopefully, Andy Burnham demonstrating some leadership on this. It's quite an opportunity for him, actually.
Well, as I said, I mean, I think most people thought, well, fair enough. I mean, he's put that tweet out there. We almost universally associate ourselves with the words. I mean, he was slightly overreaching his current position because he's not the Prime Minister, but he talked as if he was. I will be speaking to the Home Office and the Foreign Office, etc. Well, I mean, as an MP, you might have a short-circuit way of getting there, but at the moment, he's not the Prime Minister. But if that's his direction of travel, we're going to now hold him to that, right? And I think reasonably so.
Absolutely. Let's see how he performs. And there will be many such tests of Andy Burnham over this summer. Already, the signs are not very promising, are they, with these indications that we're going to have another mass release of prisoners?
Yeah.
No Prime Minister, no incoming Prime Minister wants that to be what happens the minute the curtain is raised on their new premiership. It's marked by scenes of Lamborghinis outside prison gates. It's exactly how Starmer started his premiership 2 years ago, and it was all downhill from there. I think it's going to be a very hot summer for Andy Burnham in more ways than one. I think he's going to be feeling the heat pretty quickly. We've already seen that there's been quite surprisingly minimal bounce in Labour's polling since people have known that Andy Burnham is going to be the next Prime Minister. There's a sort of charade going on where, we're also saying if he's going to be the next Prime Minister. He is going to be the next Prime Minister, and his people would probably say, well, give him a chance to actually get into number 10 before you expect any kinds of poll bounce. But I think it's going to be very short-lived. And it's not me being churlish. I've said many a time, I like Andy Burnham. I hope he does make this country better. But it's so underwhelming and uninspiring to hear that his initial thoughts on it are all about, moving number 10 to the north.
Yes, what the heck was that all about? I mean, yeah, well, he won't sign. Look, if there's one thing I know about a lefty, I have to say, Isabel, is that show them the inside of Chequers. They don't want to be going anywhere else at the weekends.
That is true.
So that'll be enough to seduce him now. Once he sees the little fishing lake and Winston Churchill's mantelpiece and all manner of other poignant and historic artefacts in that beautiful house, there's no way he's going to opt for Wigan.
I fear not. And, I remember this from other such initiatives, as no one's ever said, let's have a number 10 up north, but there have been all these daft initiatives of let's have cabinet meetings round the country. Do you remember that? Like it's some kind of episode of Question Time and it has to move every week to different parts of the country. The cabinet ministers all hate it. It's just a complete performance. It doesn't actually achieve anything. Find me a voter when you go knocking on doors as a politician. Find me a voter that says, oh, well, if only the cabinet or the Prime Minister had his little weekly meeting up here, I might feel a little bit better about the fact that bread and milk are getting so expensive. I don't think so.
Just a couple of breaking stories connected to criminality and rather horrific crimes. Two 15-year-old boys who were spared custody for the rape of two girls in Hampshire. We remember this story when I think the judge was quite, or some said glowing, of the boys concerned. They've now been sentenced to 4 years detention after the Court of Appeal ruled their original sentences were unduly lenient. And we're just hearing that former pop star Gary Glitter has been charged with 4 sexual offences against a girl dating back to 1978. This is according to the Crown Prosecution Service. And of course, I think I'm right on this, Isabel. Glitter was, I think his name's Paul Gadd, he was released and then breached his release conditions within hours or days at most by searching the internet on a mobile device and went back into jail. He's remained there ever since. I doubt whether this person is ever coming out.
Do you know what? I actually thought he was dead. I'd sort of forgotten that this guy still exists. He's just such a sort of horrible, just unpleasant reminder of kind of stories, 15 years ago or something. I thought he was that we'd seen the last of him.
Yes. Well, I don't think he's
more.
I don't think he's going to see the light of day. That's for sure. In terms of the kind... I mean, just Burnham himself, it's quite hard to work out. I mean, you've been around the political block for some time. You will remember Burnham when he was an MP. I think it was up to, 2017 or something, when he was still a Member of Parliament. But previously he served with Blair and Brown. He was a bit Blairy in one respect. He was a bit Corbyn-y in another respect. He tried to be the leader twice and failed, quite badly failed as well. And now here he is, and he's sort of doing his professional northerner thing, which is either irritating or just laughable in equal measure. But nonetheless, he's going to be the Prime Minister. How do you think he will be, Isabel? Is he going to be this Corbynite? Is he going to be this Blairite? Or does he even have a political identity? Because many of these guys, as you know, they actually aren't that bothered as long as they get the big job.
I think he really believes in, helping less well-off people, the people that he relates to from his background. But I don't think he has a big sort of broader ideology. I've written in the Telegraph before, because I do know Andy Burnham, that everybody used to think when he was a junior minister in the Blair years that he was a Blairite, only to discover that when Gordon Brown became Prime Minister, he was actually much more aligned ideologically with that sort of further left part of the Labour Party. But nobody really talked about Andy Burnham's ideology, even though he was seen as a bit of a rising star then. It wasn't that clear. And, we do have this class of managerial politicians, don't we, that just sort of, it's a job. And I don't want to impugn his motives or his integrity. I think he really does want to make life better for people. I think probably the majority of our politicians do, even though we don't much like them. But I don't know what his big vision is beyond make the North a bit better off.
Well, yes, and that's... I mean, people in the South would say we're not that well off either. So, I mean, it's always a curious, a few people texted us the other day and said, is there going to be a Downing Street Essex or a Downing Street Maidstone or something?
Yeah, Kent.
Yes, indeed. And I mean, so I was talking to David Wooding a little earlier. You'll know Dave well, and he was making the point that when you consider sort of the big things that are going on with the country, the deficit in itself, the overarching £3 trillion worth of debt that we've got, the big hole in the defence budget, the out of control welfare bill, sex offenders being kept at taxpayers' expense. Who would opt for that job, for God's sake?
Who would opt for that job? It's just a question I ask myself quite a lot. There are not many people that want to stick their neck out and do this type of work.
I wonder, you remember that adage that, Boris Johnson was the guy that wanted to become the Prime Minister. He wanted to say he'd been the Prime Minister, but didn't want to do the bit in the middle. I think there's quite a lot like that as well. Just merely by saying, I was the Prime Minister, you're forever going to be. In 2,000 years, when students look back at Prime Ministers, your name will be there in the book.
Yeah, but I think it used to have a bit more cachet than it does now, since everybody seems to get a go if they wait around long enough. I think it's quite common amongst politicians. The truth is they almost all want, secretly, they almost all love the idea of being Prime Minister. They all pretty much all think that they could do it. And the shock comes if you actually get that far, the shock comes at how difficult it is to actually change things because of all the things that we've talked about many a time on this show, the resistance of the civil service and pesky legal constraints and so on. But ultimately, to be able to say you've been Prime Minister is pretty cool, isn't it? And you've got that incredible pension, you've got security for life, I think most people would go for it and do it for a bit, and if it's wretched, then you last long anyway.
Liz Truss did a month and a half or something, and you get you've essentially got a taxi for the rest of your life. I mean, that just for that reason alone, right? The car would be the one that would do it for me. Whatever the pension did, the car.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of perks to it, and also your earning capacity afterwards. If you play your cards right, if that's what your agenda is, and you want to make money, once you've been Prime Minister, you can earn a huge amount of money in advisory roles. Probably not in what Keir Starmer apparently has his sights on, being NATO Secretary General. probably not going to happen and wouldn't be hugely well paid. But on the international circuit, they do very well.
Indeed. Isabel, great to have you on with us again. Thank you. Isabel Oakeshott Talks international editor with us on the programme. Thoughts on all of this? 0344 499 1000. I'm asking this question in a very serious capacity, actually, about Andy Burnham. Will he solve the insanity of our immigration policy? Our immigration policy seems to be full of some pretty stock answers, doesn't it? When something goes wrong, the answer is, well, no, the law won't let you do that. The law suggests you have to release this person. The law says X, Y, Z. And you just think, and I'm always going to come back to the Trump comparison. And I know Trump doesn't get it right all the time because he shoots from the hip and he says he's going to do X, Y, and Z. And then invariably what happens, they have these executive orders in the States. And this happens to all presidents, by the way. Trump seems to have just signed quite a lot of them. That's an intent. It doesn't make it law there and then. You're always going to get appeals. We saw it with the birthright thing this week. So lots of stuff that presidents say they want to do get overturned quite sharpish by the courts. And in the case of the birthright story, at least 3 of the judges were quite hardened conservatives who stood firm against Donald Trump. However, when he gets it right, and the ICE operation, the immigration operation, has to be, and I know there were some really awkward moments during that where things didn't work out quite well. I'm not just talking about those that lost their lives, but people who were wrongfully arrested, that kind of, but broadly speaking, they've solved the problem. And he just stood up and said, I'm going to solve this problem. You're not, if you're not meant to be here, you ain't coming here. That's the end of it. But we sort of have a different system where somebody will put that question to Keir Starmer and he'll say, well, I'll have a word with the Home Office and the Home Office can have a word with the Foreign Office and then we'll see what we can do. There's no kind of visceral speaking from not just the heart but the gut, some real outrage and incredulity that I'm not standing for this anymore. And that's what we... Is Burnham going to be that bloke? Serious question. 0344 499 1000.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Dan in Kent says, afternoon, Ian. Burnham can change the 1971 committee law. Should it be Commonwealth law? I stand corrected. Anyway, that law. This was a Ted Heath policy and should be easy to reverse considering it's a Tory. But here we are in the 21st century. I think our lawyer said it was didn't he say it was all baked into the ECHR legal system, and even the Tories had looked at it as recent as 2017 and decided to keep that bit in. I don't know why you would say that if you are an active paedophile, I know it doesn't specifically state the crime, and you came here before 71 or 72, then we can't deport you back to your country of origin. I don't know why you can't change that. That's within our law, right? Why could you not just change that? One here from Sarah. This Cretin will be getting legal... Oh, I did read that. Yeah, about legal aid. He'll be getting legal aid and all sorts of other assistance as well. Linda in Worcestershire says, my ancestors did not volunteer as underage soldiers and fight in wars to protect the freedoms of indigenous, born and bred British people for Pakistan, Afghan, Somalian, Eritrean, Muslim rapists and murderers to then also benefit from these freedoms to the detriment of British people. When you put it like that, that's exactly it, isn't it? Clearly, we've now got a whole body of evidence where this law is not fit for purpose. It doesn't work, because when this was crafted, I don't know if you went back to 1971. How many foreign prisoners were there in our jails in 1971? I would take a punt that the number was very, very small. Very small, compared to what we have now, where we have an out-of-control foreign prisoner problem. So there is the reason why circumstances have changed. We need to refine the law, surely. Joan in Sunderland. What have you got for us? Joan, afternoon to you.
Hello to you.
Hi.
I'm appalled by this, but we shouldn't be shocked. Listening to previous presenters, there was a thing where they said he'd had a 22-year sentence plus a 19-year sentence to run concurrently, and yet he's done 14 years and is out now.
Yep.
Now, I am fed up of people in power who take no responsibility whatsoever. When all of these rape gangs, we knew police, we knew this, that and the other, no names, no one held accountable. Right, our current Prime Minister is Starmer. Our current Attorney General is Hermer. Our current Justice Secretary is Lammy. Our present Home Secretary is Mahmood. Now, we've got others that I don't know the names of, obviously, parole boards, what have you. Now, I listened to your lawyer on there, and it would appear that everyone, it doesn't matter what they do, where they come from, is covered by some law. It's only the British people who are not protected by any law at all. We have to just accept this dross, this corruption that is happening in our country. So this man is out now. We've got the names and we've got the pictures in our mind of these politicians and judges and others who allowed this man out.
Yep.
If this man causes any more problems, and that includes trying to get help from a human rights lawyer, anything he does now is culpable to them. We know who they were. They were in power now, the 1st of July, 2026. So if anything is done by that man from this day forward, they are responsible. Because I am fed up, Ian, of everybody having rights in this world but us. We're allowing people in this country, we have no idea who they are, where they've come from, what they've done, what they intend to do. And it's just absolutely serious. We are losing our children and grandchildren. They're going abroad. There's nothing in this country for them. Everything's being taken off them, jobs, housing, hope, the lot. We'll be seeing our grandchildren celebrating all kinds of things courtesy of a mobile phone. Gone will be the days where you can pop round to your son or daughters, give your little grandchildren a hug, blow out curtains candles on a birthday cake. We are just letting people come and take over this country who have no damned right to do it. And our own people, our children can't get jobs. You're too white. You're too this. You're too that. You're too the other. Come on, Brits. Let's get this sorted. This just can't go on.
It's a brilliant, lovely monologue from you, Joan, and properly from the heart. Here's the question, though. Is Andy Burnham the man to solve all the problems?
No.
Yeah.
He just hasn't got it in him. He'll have to pay back his pound of flesh to these backbenchers.
Sure.
These socialists have no guts. They've got no spine. They would rather give our country away to people who have no right to it. They'd sacrifice their children and their grandchildren for this socialist thing. They don't love the country. We allow people to tell us we can't fly a flag because we're racist or right-wing. I'm 86. I'll accept I'm a racist and I'm a right-winger if all I want to do is love my country and see that it's governed fairly.
Yeah, and you're right, it doesn't, and that shouldn't make you a racist, and I know the point you were making, but that is often the accusation or how people have been made to feel in this country. Joan, I've got to run, but you've been brilliant. Lovely to have you on with us. Thank you, Joan in Sunderland. Paul's in Liverpool. What have you got for us, Paul? Afternoon.
Yeah, and that guy, the barrister,
yeah,
he's the problem. He's the pinnacle of the problem. Even the MPs will go to him to say, what can we do? And he'll go, oh, no, we can't do anything. Do you know what? It should be put to him, like, we want to change the law. Can you do it?
Yeah.
And when he says no, say, OK, we're going to go to another barrister. Can we do it? And there's a way of doing it, because you leave the ECHR and all the other ones, and it can be done. This guy is absolutely the problem. He is a horrible, and I hope he's listening, he's a horrible man, because it was his kid getting raped week in, week out. What you telling me wouldn't find a way?
Yeah.
This man is a disgrace.
There's always...
You, my friend, I hope he's listening. You, my friend, the barrister, you're a disgrace, mate. You hide behind a book.
He said, if you remember, Paul, he said it's not his view, he's just telling us what the law is.
And then he was almost fighting you to find a way where you couldn't change the law. I was listening in.
I know, it's a bit bizarre. When I mentioned changing the law, he says, no, you can't. Really?
He then went into one almost like, no, it's not. Yeah. He was literally, he had his mouth around that like a bone. He was not letting you find a way.
Yeah.
And that proved it to me. You're the problem, mate. It's you and your law. It's you and your law. Disgraceful.
Listen, great call, Paul. Love the passion. Thank you, mate, for that. 0344 499 1000. Gary in East Malling says, funny how the left will grandstand about British values, what makes us great and how we lead on justice and civil rights, and then the next day bleat on about having no culture and that the empire was evil and only took. It ends there. But anyway, at the broader point, I got you, Gary. It did look like a half-cocked text, that. But maybe I misread it. I don't think I did. I think the broad brush of the point that Gary was making was there. Nikki in Bristol says, expecting Andy Burnham to fix the immigration crisis is like asking your local chippy to solve climate change. Nice speeches, sure, but this is the bloke who spent years calling to scrap no recourse to public funds so more arrivals could access benefits and housing. Now he's suddenly all get a grip on the boats after the by-election poked him. Records show he voted against tougher enforcement most of his career, and his big vision is devolution and regional power, no actual border control. The backlog won't clear itself because you've got a 10-year Manchester plan, lads. Well, believe it when the numbers actually drop and trust stops tanking. Until then, it's the same old tune, but with a northern accent. Great point, Nikki. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The big narrative that we've been talking about, our next Prime Minister about, is the fact that he wants to put some offices in Manchester. I mean, seriously, that is it. No meat on the bones. Nothing. I appreciate that, you know, he can make another speech and maybe we'll get some meat on the bones. I appreciate he's not yet the Prime Minister, but really? Oh, we're going to build a new office for Downing Street, Manchester. Or was it Manchester number 10 or number 10 Manchester? One of the two. 0344 499 1000. 2:30. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, just gone 2:30. So much to get through. I want to look at this story, which we did reference a little earlier. Researchers dubbing yesterday Death Day. Wow. Deaths now permanently outnumber births. The fertility rate is at a record low, and kids aged 8 and under may not retire until they're 75. Britain's population will start declining in the mid-2050s. Until then, every bit of growth comes from migration. Interesting. Paul Morland is one of the UK's leading demographers and author. Afternoon to you, Paul. It's an interesting subject. Well, it's obviously interesting to you because it's your area of speciality. You focus on this. But I'm sure you're aware of this. When people read this headline, it sounds initially like a sort of fun fact, and you can hear people in pubs going, yeah, guess what, we're not going to have as many people, and people aren't breeding as much, you know, better get home and sort that out. All these kind of little gags that get thrown around. But actually underpinning this is a really serious socio-economic discussion, I mean, that really does need addressing. Would that be fair?
It would be fair. I mean, it's the product of a couple of things. The first is that there are a lot of baby boomers now reaching the 80s. So a lot of people are of the age where our lives end. I'm the back end of the baby boom, but the front end will be leaving us at some point. And the second thing is that those people have not had enough children, and their children have not had enough children. So it's not only that the fertility rate of today's generation is small because of lack of births in the past, but they're not having many children in turn. So it's a combination of not that many childbearing age people, not having many children each, and then a big cohort starting to die off.
So is there anything in that? Because obviously we can't do anything about people who are going to die because of their years and their age, etc. Is there such a thing as a public health campaign to get people procreating?
Well, there hasn't really been in this country, which is why, sort of to refer to your previous story, I wish we were talking about this more than offices in Manchester. Not lovely though they will be, I'm sure. Whereas in other countries like France, President Macron's talked about demographic rearmament. Yep. The French state has been explicitly pro-natal for about 130 years since the Franco-Prussian War. It's probably 150 years now. We've never had a frontline politician talk about it until Keir Starmer. And he made the grand pronunciation, it's nothing to do with me, I'm not interested. So that was the nearest we've got from a frontline politician expressing any concern about the fact
Yes,
that we are going to have more and more problem financing our services and looking after our elderly.
I mean, just in those last few words that you just uttered there, amidst all the other slightly worrying and disturbing possibilities going forward, I don't really want to hear the Prime Minister say it's nothing to do with me. I mean, I would imagine this should be pivotal to something. I appreciate they've got defence and welfare and all sorts of other things to take care of, but much of that, certainly the welfare issue, feeds into this discussion. And there are obviously issues around the workplace, issues around kids today that are under the age of 8, as I mentioned, having to maybe work to 75, difficulties filling jobs. I mean, the whole list goes on. The demographic change of the country, which people can argue against for a variety of reasons. Some people don't like too much of a mixed population for their own reasons, and it's a democracy, that's fine. Other people will argue, well, actually, you know, there is a genuine argument about the British gene pool, as it were, the indigenous gene pool, being reduced. I mean, that's a fair argument. I think we would respect another country if they were arguing that this was a problem.
Well, I think that the Prime Minister, like many people, is sensitive about talking about this because it seems personal. And no one's talking about forcing anyone to have children. But that doesn't mean it's outside the realm of public discourse or public concern. And I think you've raised a lot of the issues. The fact that we will struggle to pay pensions, struggle to finance the National Health Service, the fact that lots of women particularly say they want to have children and are not having them. And I think that's a real concern. And what are we doing as a society that is getting in the way of people meeting their aspirations for families? And I completely agree with you. I mean, I wrote a paper about the trade-off of immigration and fertility, and the fact is it's perfectly normal for people to say, I think, this country was largely populated by my ancestors. I'd like it largely to be populated by my descendants and not think we can just fill the country with immigrants from hither and thither, quite apart from the fact that many countries where we've traditionally got immigrants from, such as Ireland, such as Poland and beyond, now have very low fertility rates themselves. This is a global issue, and we can't solve it just by shuffling people around the world.
Is there anywhere on good old planet Earth that has got the perfect template where they've encountered this problem and decided to address it and have done so with a level of success?
Well, the first country I would point to is Israel, which is the only country in the developed world with a healthy fertility rate. That's 3. And the government's generally pronatal, but that deeply stems from the culture and the country and people feeling that they're surrounded by enemies and they need to strengthen themselves, as well as being religious to some extent. But where countries have actually tried positive policies, it's quite mythological to say, or incorrect to say, I should say, that they've never succeeded. So, for example, even the Blair-Brown government, which had modest tax breaks for people having children, that seemed to have some effect around the early 21st century. The baby bonus in Australia, academic reports show that it did have an effect. In Hungary, the government's done an awful lot, and it has improved the fertility rate, even though it's gone back a little bit. Now, there are no easy magic answers to getting it back up to 2, but there's certainly a set of government policies around tax, around benefits, around housing, around support for childcare, and a shift in the culture in terms of what messages, for example, we send out to children in school, what our sex education is like, which could start to address this, won't fix it quickly and won't fix it wholly, but will certainly reduce the problem rather than just digging our heads in the sand.
And it's interesting when you speak to people who don't have kids. I mean, obviously, there are groups of people who simply don't want to have children, and that's fine. But there are many who cite the prime reason would be affordability. So this raises another question then, doesn't it? This is not about a population that have decided they are anti-kids or just want to have more exotic holidays without worrying about childcare. It's the overarching cost of living issue again.
I think we have to do a whole raft of things to help people financially, and that particularly includes housing and planning rules, which make it so difficult for young families to get going. The fact that we have filled so many of our council houses with immigrants rather than young aspiring families in the UK, and childcare support, which has improved but could get better. It's a whole raft of material things, but and we do all of those. Unless we shift the culture, which is what people's priorities are, what we value as a society. And shifting the culture is not easy, but it can be done. It's often been done the other way. Many societies have shifted the culture so people don't want to have as many children. So I think it's a challenge. is not easy, but I think it has to be both cultural and material. In other words, it has to be about what people's priorities are, but also about helping them financially. I think we really have to reorient the whole activity and priorities of the state in this direction, because if we don't, we will endlessly have economic stagnation and I think eventually economic collapse.
This is fascinating, and I'm sure we would love to speak again on this again going forward, Paul. Thank you for that. Great to see you. Paul Morland, UK's leading demographer and author. What are the reasons? It is... people talk about immigration, and what he did there I thought was brilliant, because he came at it from a purely sort of academic perspective, talking about how, you know, my country, I think he said that, I inherited this country from my British ancestors. I'd like to leave it to my British ancestors, or words to that effect. That's not a political point. That is, I think, it's in the instinctive and collective gene pool, isn't it, that you want to continue. You want your race to continue. You want your people to continue. And if you bear with me while I make this point, but if you remember when there was the great famine in Ethiopia, and Bob Geldof was raising money at that time, and there was always a lot of comment about, why do these people have babies? Look, they've got nothing. They've got no food. They're walking hundreds, thousands of miles just to find a well with some water in it. They've got no health care, and they're having flipping babies. And the answer to that is so they can keep... They're going to die, but they want there to be their people to remain. They want to continue their race. It wasn't because they were just horny. They were starving and wanted to make sure that in the absence of them, that there is still a race of people to continue their lineage and their culture. That's the thinking. So there's nothing wrong with that, is the point. So when we have arguments about immigration and people say, I quite like the idea that a British country mostly looks British and we rub along with, obviously, a certain amount of immigration, but our core identity is that of our ancestors, and that's the identity we'd like to pass down to the next generation and the one after that. Nothing wrong with that, but people aren't breeding. It's that simple. Mark in Staffordshire says ways to get people breeding. Number 1, turn off the internet. Fair. Number 2, print the old tennis poster with the lady hiding the ball. Was that the one with the tennis skirt? Is she hiding the ball? I thought she was scratching her bum. Yeah. Did the bloke who took that picture copyright it? Because you'd be probably living in Barbados right now, I'd imagine. 3, free chips and gravy for people trying to... Yeah, because right after that, that's what you fancy, chips and gravy. I might go KFC on that point, Mark, but you're broadly bang on. Lots of reasons. Cost of living is huge. Buying a house, starting a family, all the stuff that wasn't controversial. There was nothing weird about somebody leaving school, meeting somebody, getting married, buying a house. Nobody went, you bought a house? How did you do that? I mean, sure, it was unusual in some areas where people only ever thought about council housing, but that was never, ever, ever going to last. That couldn't have sustained forever. But it wasn't that weird. I say this often. My sister bought a house. She worked in an office. Her husband, boyfriend as he was then, drove a forklift truck. 2 people doing that job today could not buy the house that they bought. And it was a tiny mid-terrace little, I think it was 1 bedroom. If it was 2, the second one looked like a cupboard. It was tiny, but it was their first house. And that would just not be possible today. But having that security... And again, it wasn't that weird. Although it was weird within the family, because nobody really in our family had ever left school and bought a house. Some eventually did. But it wasn't bizarre. Nobody went, oh, my God, have you heard what's happened? She's bought a house. Them at remember the girl at number 16? She's bought a house. Nobody had that conversation. It's, oh, you bought your house, that was it. It was just standard stuff. Today, people would go, how'd you do that then? How'd you do that? You work literally as an office assistant. You're not a secretary or a PA. You just assist in the office. And you bought a house. That was kind of remarkable. Derek is in Manchester. What's the answer here, Derek? What's going on? Good afternoon to you.
Well, it doesn't take an absolute genius to wonder how it's happened, does it? I mean, at the end of the day, if you flood your country with cheap foreign labour, and you make it impossible for your own kids to afford to have children, put them all out of work, then what's going to happen? They're not going to be able to have children. You're not going to have a population. You're going to have a foreign, but you're going to have a completely, your country's going to be taken over. There's no two ways about that. And that's exactly what's happened. And all these geniuses that we've elected for years and years and years have took backhanders, no doubt at all, from big business to allow this to continue unchecked. You know, I mean, it's an absolute joke. Who would consider fetching other people in to do the work that you could always do yourself? Who would consider doing that?
It's bonkers.
Unless you were getting paid to do it.
What do you do though, Derek, if the people in your own country are not doing the jobs? How do we change that bit?
Yes, but they were doing the jobs. They were doing the jobs quite adequately many years ago. And the top and bottom of it was, my mother never had to go out to work because my father worked. My father took home a wage that kept the household, and he only worked for he worked on the newspapers. He was a printer's assistant, whatever he did, I don't really know. I left school and I went into work. I was a plant fitter, and then I became a crane driver, and I managed to keep a household, and we didn't have to. We didn't. I'm going. You know, I mean, we didn't have to both go out to work to earn one wage. Now you've got poor kids now who have got 2 and 3 jobs, and they still cannot afford to pay the rent.
So we've got a cost of living crisis.
Brought cheap labour in to do the jobs.
But then if you work in a coffee shop, you're getting paid the same as a local would get paid in a coffee shop.
Say that again.
If a migrant comes to this country, let's say somebody comes from a European country, they get paid the same to work in Costa as you'd get paid.
Oh yeah, but they've suppressed the wages over the. I was earning more in the 70s and 80s than I am now.
Yeah, weird.
And I'm retired. I'm retired actually, but I still have to work because the bloody pension is away. It just won't keep me. You know,
Listen.
and that's what we've come to. Because and the people that caused this knew full well what they were doing. They were bringing in people. That if you flood a market with anything, you make it cheaper, and that's exactly what they did with the wages in this country.
So you think they did it knowing this would be the case?
Of course they did. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they got backhanders from big business in order to do that.
Well, you never know. Derek, stranger things have happened. Thank you very much indeed for that. I am genuinely intrigued, and this isn't just about my own background, about those kind of jobs. What happened, and fruit picking is the obvious one. I always seem to point to this. When people used to go, it seemed to be mostly working class, mostly women, that would wait for the truck to come round your way. You jump in the back of a truck or a coach, it would take you to a farm. You go potato picking or strawberry picking, depending on the season. You do that all day, and it was cash in hand, so there was that. Most people could do it as long as they were, you know, in a position where they were not ill or something like that. They were able to function and earn themselves a living. When did that disappear? When did that become untrendy to want to pick spuds or some other fruit picking job or area of that? When did I appreciate science has changed, so you've now got a lot of fruit picking stuff happens kind of automatically. But even before that, you know, we often talk about Eastern Europeans. I lived on a farm a while back in between houses, okay? We needed a place while we were buying a place, and it ended up being like a big mobile home on a farm in Headcorn in Kent, just around the corner from where James Well would have lived. And they had loads of other caravans at the end of this farm, which is where all the kind of Eastern European guys would come. They would live there, they'd pick the fruit, and then they'd go back, and then they'd come back the following year. When did that job get passed over to foreigners from the indigenous people? Was it an appetite that we lost? Was it that? 0344 499 1000. Voice of Doom on the way. Loads more to come. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Coming up on 5 to 3. Right, Voice of Doom. For those who don't know, it's day what, Sam? 7. 12. Where did I get 7 from? Day 12, all right? So this has gone on for a while. Day 12. They don't usually last this long. It's a mystery voice. It's political. You're looking for either a politician or somebody obviously connected to politics, dead or alive, male or female, left wing, right wing, Brit, foreign, whatever. This is the voice.
Any of the noble aspirations.
Let's hear that again.
Any of the noble aspirations.
Any of the what?
Any of the noble aspirations.
87222 is the only way you can have a crack at this. 87222. If we get a right answer, we reveal it after the news. If we don't, it rolls over for day 13 tomorrow. Very simple request. Who is this?
Any of the noble aspirations.
87222. Michael is in Norfolk. What have you got for us, Michael? Afternoon to you.
Well, good afternoon to you. Yes, I was not very impressed with what you were saying about population. We've got to bring the population down, not increase it.
Okay. Why do you think that's the best thing to do? If the experts are saying, well, if we bring it down, we're going to have nobody to do the work and pay the taxes.
Yeah, but how far does it go? I mean, if you carry on like that, it'll be then we'll have more people, and then you'll need to bring it down, up again, up again, up again. Somewhere along the line, we've got to bring the population down.
Why are the experts saying we need to bring it up?
I don't know, because overpopulation makes the world more unstable.
Well, we have migrants that are having babies, so we can increase the population, just not by indigenous Brits.
Yeah, but I think the world generally is overpopulated. We need to get the world down to about 6 billion from about 9 billion.
Right. Does that have I mean, that might work in some areas where you're not dependent on, Western standards and commerce and factories and innovation, but would that work over here if we suddenly reduced the workforce? At the moment, there's a lot of job vacancies out there, Michael.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people who are not working either.
That's also true.
My argument is this. Our countryside now is being rapidly, completely and utterly destroyed. Every village in this part of the country is just being expanded and expanded. The quality of life everywhere is being spoiled.
Yeah. So bring the population down, get back to basics. Is that the message?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. I like getting back to basics. It's my favourite thing.
Yeah, it's one of our big things. I mean, some of the villages, we live in Banham in Norfolk. I'm speaking to you at the moment from Wyndham. But every village now is just becoming urban sprawl.
Yeah, you see, that does happen. When I look back at where I grew up, Michael, in Kent, I go back to all these little, there's your town, and then there's like a dozen villages around the town, right? They're all now connected.
Yes, absolutely.
So the housing estates have gone south that way, north that way, east, west, and suddenly these places that were once, only a couple of miles out of the main town, you drive down an A road and you'd arrive in Ham Street or you'd arrive in Sellinge or whatever the case may be. You discover now that there's a lot of not always, but there's a lot of changes that's bringing the whole thing together. And that's a shame in many respects. Michael, thank you for your call. He wants to go back to basics. I'm not genned up enough economically to be able to give an instant answer as to how that can affect the whole kind of economic and financial spectrum of the country. But I do broadly understand that if you don't have enough people to go to work, then you don't have enough people paying taxation, companies will fold, and then you have another problem on your hands. So it's all about a sort of balance. And I guess it's a Western thing, isn't it? And when the Western world was developed, people started building and cities and towns were formed. Nobody at any point back then would have gone, oh, by the way, better watch the numbers because we need X amount for this thing to work. Because it's only going to work and be productive if you've got X amount of people in it. So there must have been a point when there were... And then people would build and it would all... I don't know whether it's like the markets, it just sort of worked out. And now it's not working out because we haven't got enough people. But Michael says we've got too many people. Bring it down. Get back to a little more subtlety and reduce the global population by 3 billion. His words. 0344 499 1000. More calls on that. Will Andy Burnham solve the insanity of our immigration policy? We're basing this on that tweet he put out yesterday, referenced the paedophile being released from jail. Thoughts on that? And, of course, on a much lighter note, we have the voice of doom. Very simple question. Who is this?
Any of the noble aspirations.
It's the mystery voice. If you think you know, 87222. If we get a right answer, we'll reveal all after the news at 3 o'clock, which comes next on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is the Afternoon Empire. Yeah, good afternoon. Welcome back. It is the home of common sense. So much to get through here. And we continue, of course, to, well, a little look back at last night. I think that's fair enough. England knocking a couple of beauties in, but not till the very end of a match where we were already 1-0 down. That's broken a 60-year curse, by the way, by coming back from behind. Hasn't happened since '66. But DR Congo were the victims. It was a 2-1 win. Throws us to a much tougher match in the next round. Mexico, in one of Mexico's most famous stadiums of football. It's home territory for the Mexicans. Can Harry and the boys penetrate, dominate, and come back with a win? Also this afternoon, Andy Burnham demanding that ministers exhaust every option to deport Rochdale grooming gang leader Shabir Ahmed. He walks free today despite 30 child rape convictions as questions mount over whether Britain's next Prime Minister can untangle the country's broken immigration system. Might sound odd, but will Andy Burnham solve the insanity of our immigration policy? Is he the man to do it? And as you've been hearing, deaths have begun to outnumber births in England and Wales. because we're in a situation where it was called Death Day yesterday for this reason. Britain has entered a new demographic era with 450,000 more deaths than births being projected over the next decade alone. More on that as well. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk. Now, what about this? 3:05, by the way. TV licence fee evasion has risen sharply in the last decade, with the BBC wasting 160 million quid a year attempting to enforce compliance. Could a Netflix-style subscription model save the Beeb from going under? Let's speak with Christopher Snowdon, Head of Lifestyle Economics of the IEA. Christopher, afternoon to you. The licence debate, I mean, for years, this has come up as a debate when I've been doing programmes such as this. But actually, the argument has changed somewhat, and more fundamentally of late, because we are in a different era. Netflix, Disney, Amazon, Apple, which are really the irredeemable pointers and examples in this debate that almost shuts down any defence of well, not the BBC, but the BBC funding model. It's beyond a romantic notion, a link to almost the past. I cannot find, genuinely, a single argument to support the BBC's current funding model. Is that fair?
Well, I think that's right. I think technology has changed the game. It used to be that if you had an aerial, you could get any TV station you wanted.
Yep.
And if you had an aerial, you were almost certainly watching the BBC from time to time, therefore should pay the license. But we do know now there's a growing number of young people in particular who genuinely are not watching any live broadcasts and are not using the iPlayer.
Yeah.
But moreover, there are a much larger number of people who are simply not paying the license fee. So I think shifting to a Netflix-style model is going to be pushed on the BBC. And I think it's in the BBC's interest here. The BBC has always fiercely resisted a subscription model, which implies that they don't think many people would pay for the service if they had a choice. Now, if that's true, it makes forcing people to pay for it rather unethical. I actually think the BBC should be a bit more forthright about this and a bit more optimistic, actually, that if we had a Netflix-style model, if it was rolled out across the entire globe, bearing in mind that there are 2 billion TVs in the world and only 50 million of them are in the UK, the BBC could quite easily increase its viewers, but also its revenue. It just takes a bit of courage, I think, to accept that we've now got 1 in 8 households are not paying the TV license. That's gone up from 1 in 20 10 years ago. I can see that spiraling as people realise that paying the license fee is essentially optional. Yeah. You're not going to get caught. If you do get caught, you'll only have to pay the value of 1 year's license fee, give or take.
Yep.
People are just going to decide this is not something I'm going to be doing anymore. And the BBC needs to be locking those people out. If it's unethical to charge people for entertainment they're not consuming, it's also unethical for people to be stealing it for free. And having a Netflix-style subscription model would solve both those problems.
You'd think so. And just looking at the numbers, the licence fee evasion has risen from 5% to about 12.5% in the last 10, 12 years. Real-term revenue falling 28%. Prosecutions dropping from 150,000 to just 25,000 annually. This is despite the BBC still putting millions of pounds into trying to chase that. I mean, they must know the game is up, and most serious people clearly understand it. There's so many things I don't understand. I thought the point you made about the amount of television sets, as it were, around the world is huge. And the BBC already has the infrastructure in place, right? If you were starting from scratch, you know, a lot of the things we've seen recently, at one point, Netflix started from scratch, pretty much. I know it came from other models. Amazon, similarly, in this respect, starting from a very basic model with no previous history in broadcasting or streaming, whereas the BBC have got it all there, haven't they? It's all, not only is it there, they've got a massive back catalogue of programmes. I mean, some of the stuff they flog around the world, whether it's Doctor Who, Strictly Come Dancing, I mean, the Attenborough stuff would solve the national debt of several small countries. It's so valuable. I mean, so they're not exactly a kind of fledgling company that needs help.
No, it's got a tremendously valuable archive, and as you say, a lot of that already is licensed to various different TV networks. Yeah. I think that the iPlayer, or whatever you want to call it, this new subscription model, should aim to have everything the BBC has ever made under one roof. for a reasonable fee. The license fee itself is actually only £15 a month, which if you compare it to TNT Sports and on Apple and a lot of other subscription services, not all that expensive actually. And in fact, that could come down if you have lots more subscribers from around the rest of the world. But you have very valuable live broadcasts, you have incredibly valuable archive, you can also patch in the iPlayer and the radio services. I think you have a genuinely attractive proposition to a huge number of people worldwide. Let's look at getting more subscribers than we currently have paying the license fee, not fewer of them.
Yeah, and for those programmes that people absolutely love, so if you're a sort of person that watches EastEnders or other Holby City, those programmes that are in similar genres, then you would only be asked to pay something that resembles what you already pay.
Yeah, and there is already this thing called the BritBox, which we can't access actually in the UK. And that has 4 million subscribers. That has a lot of the BBC archive, not a vast amount of it, but quite a lot of the more recent stuff. What it doesn't have is any live broadcasting. And as I say, it doesn't have a huge number, Only Fools and Horses and all that kind of thing, perhaps. I'm not sure exactly what it has on it because I can't access it. But nor can most of the world. I mean, the BritBox is not available anywhere in Africa, anywhere in South America. It's not even available in some English-speaking countries like New Zealand. They should beef up the BritBox, give it a different name, make it a genuinely global phenomenon. There are enough people who are affectionate about England, who are expats, or at least speak the English language, for live broadcasting and this fantastic archive to appeal for, let's say, £10, £15.
I've heard of so many different sort of variants of the argument as to what what is the best model. There are some that advocate that the BBC should be funded solely as a news channel, and that would include their internet, their web presence, social media presence, as well as obviously the main channels and the like, and that would include current affairs as well as news. Now, the theory being that if you have a news base, a news output that is completely exempt from any kind of need for sponsorship, then you can remain totally neutral, and that's very attractive. I know the BBC don't always get it right, see Panorama for details, but broadly speaking, the theory is that would be... Some people would be okay to pay for that because it would be seen as a civilised thing to have in your country. Now, I feel quite strongly about the BBC and news because I work in the commercial sector and I can see how they can dominate it because somebody else is paying for it. But notionally, is there anything in that idea?
Well, I think that you could continue paying from the revenue that you're making from this fantastic global success story of the BBC subscription channel. I'm not really in favour of using taxpayers' money to fund news or anything, actually, any kind of TV or radio. You would still have, of course, even under my system, you would have some things that you couldn't prevent people from accessing. So you can't stop people listening to Radio 2 or Radio 4 at the moment. I think if we're going to continue broadcasting those kind of things, I think advertising could probably fill the gap. I think there's a case for taxpayer funding for the World Service. I think it's actually already funded, I think, by the Foreign Office. But these things are relatively trivial in the great scheme of what the BBC is spending. Spending £6 billion a year, not all that much of that is going on the news. So I think we can have a separate conversation about this news output.
That sounds fair enough. Christopher, great to have you on again. Thank you very much indeed. Christopher Snowden, Head of Lifestyle Economics at the Institute of Economic Affairs. I'm itchy about the news idea, but it makes a good point that if you divvied it up, it'd be about 15 quid a month based on the current licence. You could drop that to... even if you dropped it to a £5 a month, but you'd have more people because you'd open it up to the global market as well. So you've got the existing programmes. You have to remember, of course, that the BBC don't make all their own programmes, so many are made independently, and then they're bought in and sold, and advertisers can have their say on it as well. That would surely be the best way, because when the BBC talk about whether enough people would subscribe, that's kind of based on people only in this country subscribing. But if it was put out to the rest of the world, I think there's enough stuff in there. You'd get enough interest to make it at least wash it, no, more than wash its own face. You'd get enough interest to do, genuinely be able to create a body of work that resembled any other streaming service. In fact, it would exceed, because of their back catalogue, other streaming services. Is that the answer? Back to immigration. Justin is in Sheffield. Justin, what have you got for us afternoon?
Well, it's just a quick point. Which,
yeah.
I mean, hear this frequently. I heard it from one of your previous callers and from at Reform UK, etc., about the fact that immigration suppresses wages, like that's a bad thing. Well, it isn't a bad thing at all, because suppressing wages is suppressing inflation. It's two sides of the same coin.
So we need more immigration. Is that your theory?
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you can use arguments for and against immigration, but using the argument that immigrants suppress wages is not a good argument to make, because suppressing wages suppresses inflation.
Right.
That's the point that I'm
okay. No, I hear what you're saying. And the argument is, because I've never believed, I mean, when they talk about immigration and, well, if they bring in immigrants, then they don't have to pay as much money. I mean, that's not, I mean, if you work in the dark economy, yeah, that might be the case. But if you work in Tesco and you happen to be Polish, you'll earn the same rate as somebody else that works in Tesco. And, if you think of Eastern European immigration, which at one point did have an effect on trades, like if you're a carpenter, a sparky, a plumber, whatever. But now that's completely changed.
Ian, that was one of the very few things that Ian Duncan Smith said that I disagreed with. He was going on about the fact that during the Olympics, the tradesmen in London couldn't get jobs because the Polish plumbers were undercutting them. And I was thinking, well, why is that a bad thing? Why is that a bad thing?
Yeah, but I'm not. Listen, where I live, there's a load of tradespeople who, over the years, you have somebody, an electrician or a plumber come round. I've lost count of how many of those guys have either been Polish or from that part of Europe, and they're not any cheaper.
Well,
it's
yeah,
not like there's a,
now.
He's going to charge you 200 quid a day to do your radiators, and there's a Polish fella's going to charge you 50. No, the Polish fella's going to charge you the same. He's been here for 30 years. He's not any cheaper than the other bloke.
Well,
but you're right. The principle of undercutting is exactly what capitalism is meant to be about, isn't it?
Exactly, quite, yeah.
There you go. Justin, thank you very much indeed for that. Quinn, down in London, says, I don't have a car, but I'm not made to pay road tax in case I get one. Therefore, I don't watch the BBC, so will not pay for it. It's very hard to ask somebody to pay for something they don't use. That's a whole new... You couldn't take that idea to Dragon's Den, could you? And say, hey, I've got this great idea, but quite a lot of people don't want it. That's probably not going to work. If you don't use it, you don't use it. Again, I come back to solely the romantic argument. I thought Christopher Snowden's point was a real good one. A real good one, which was that if you had a subscription service to the BBC, it would be open to people beyond just the BBC, beyond just this country. So that would be the game changer. And if BritBox, is that a collaboration of the BBC and ITV, isn't it, I think? Which doesn't have everything on it, and I know a lot of people in other countries kind of moan a little bit that why isn't XYZ on it. But if they've got 4 million subscribers, and I don't know how high profile that is in the streaming world, in that kind of streaming world. So it's not meant to be. It's not a Netflix thing. It is a back catalogue offering, if you like. So it's not making new and original content, as far as I know. So if it's got 4 million already doing that, then you'd imagine the BBC, for foreign people, foreign countries, other countries, would be able to exceed that multiple times, you would imagine. Right, let's do the voice of doom. This has gone on for 12 days. Have we got a winner? This is the voice we played you about half an hour ago.
Any of the noble aspirations.
These are some of the guesses. Jimmy Carter. No. Joe Glenn. No. Ronald Reagan. No. Jeff Sessions. John Oliver. No. I like John Oliver. Bridget Macron. Robert F. Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy. Colin Powell. Colin Powell twice. Walter Mondale. No. John McCain. No. Let's hear the voice again, Sam.
Any of the noble aspirations.
However, day 12, we have got a winner. It's congratulations to Clayton in Dartford, and we'll tell you on Monday who the voice is. No, we'll tell you now. The voice is, now some of you are going to, like all Voice of Doom, people go, I don't know who that is. The answer was Caspar Weinberger, who was a politician, businessman, served in a variety of prominent roles. Most notably, he was Secretary of Defence under Ronald Reagan. So he goes back a bit, back to the early 80s to the mid-80s. Third longest tenure for a Secretary of Defence in US history. The answer was Caspar Weinberger. Clayton, I'd love you to get back in touch with us, just to tell us how you knew that. Was it a shot in the dark? Did you have to look at the words and do some real I don't think it's AI-able, but you might have done some due diligence on the words and found a context? Was it that? Or did you just go, I'm going to take a punt at a pretty, historically speaking, pretty well-known American political figure? Do let us know, because I'm intrigued. Clayton in Dartford, well done. He walks away with his head held high, being able to tell all of his friends that he won the Voice of Doom. And they can look at him and go, the what? We've got a new one tomorrow, a brand new one. It starts again. Well done to Clayton. Later in the show, by the way, I'm going to be telling you how you could get your hands on a massive 26,000 quid tax-free. This is all part of TalkSport's Talk's World Cup celebrations. However, if you'd like some more details now, right now, you can head over to talksportwin.com. That's talksportwin.com, where you'll find more information. But if not, I'll bring you the details in just a bit. It's 3:20. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This from Marcus says, I agree with your caller. We are overpopulated. We need more quality and less quantity. Too many idle bodies, not enough workers, make it uncomfortable to live on benefits, stop immigration for 10 years, deport illegals, and one problem will be solved. Then you get into the argument, thank you, Mark, for that. The argument that Boris Johnson totally screwed up was that we need some care workers, and that's fine. And the genuine shortage, and continues to be a shortage of care workers. Is there still a shortage of truckers, Bud? Do you remember that whole era where we had no truck drivers? And people were applying for jobs, and the wages it was an interesting sort of microcosm look into what happens genuinely when there is a shortage and a company has to up the wages. And there were all these examples of people earning, really quite a lot of money because the companies had to offer much more than they would have done half an hour before because they had nobody do. Is that still a thing, a shortage of truck drivers? I think there's still a shortage of care workers, but then Boris Johnson brought a load of people in and the visas weren't really worth the paper they were written on because people came in on a care worker visa and then ended up doing something else, or there was an agent. Usually agencies are involved in this kind of stuff. They go, yeah, we've got care workers, got to come in, you come, and then they would put those people into other jobs. But again, you have a minimum wage in this country, so is that minimum wage set because they know that there will always be people that can... I don't think it is. It's set basically on the indigenous... and when I say indigenous, I mean the existing population, whether they are indigenous or whether they come from someone else. The wage is set based on the current status, not, let's keep it low because that will get more immigrants in. Because it ain't that low for many companies. Simon is in North Yorkshire on the population issue. Simon, what are you making of this?
Oh, hi there, Ian.
Hi.
Good to get on. Yeah, well, actually, it's interesting just what you were just saying about Boris and the sort of mass low immigration. I was wondering if anyone's actually looked into Serco and Richard Soames, who was making a lot of money out of that. But I don't want to prejudice anyone at the moment.
No, absolutely, just in case.
But no, the point I called about was really about your previous caller, who I think I agree with, that we don't need a high population. I was going to draw the point really to the period after the Black Death, which is, it sounds a bit awful, but actually after that we had...
These are significant sort of moments, aren't they, in a population crisis, as it were?
Well, exactly, and it ended serfdom because then the value of labour was had a value. Well, and it gave birth to the middle class, and then the Industrial Revolution, and then here we are. So I don't think it's to be worried about. And now we've got AI. It could be another form of job plague, as it were. What do we need all these low-skilled people for?
Well, it's a very good point. What do we need low-skilled people? But then is there now
or even white-collar people?
Well, I was going to say, but if you look at the world of sort of another moment of change in the kind of template of our system is artificial intelligence, and we haven't even touched the sides on this yet. But the suggestion is that will hoover up quite a lot of significant numbers of people and bodies for doing things like manual laboury stuff, like an Amazon warehouse, will be, the only kind of workers we would need in any number. Say again?
I mean, they've already got. If you look at the Tesla robots, they're doing that.
That's true. Yeah. So even that bit's covered.
Yeah, kind of. So yeah, I do question. I think the best countries suited to weather the storm coming, it will be high GDP, low population countries. So if anything, we should be looking at mass remigration, depopulation, and tech up.
Or do we just start another country next to this one?
Yeah, well, there you go. Like sort of Isle of Man or something. Yeah?
Well, yeah, just something on a slightly big, expand the Isle of Man or something of that nature and sort of start again, and then we can work in as there'll be a sort of duality between the two, but they will work mostly independent of each other, and we've solved the crisis, and the world gets richer, and everybody goes on holiday very happy.
Well, actually, the main point, though, probably why we have this mass migration is really to support the pension Ponzi scheme and the state. I mean, if we could have some sort of debt jubilee and just sort of wipe the slate clean, we probably would realise that we could actually pay people a proper wage and not have to have loads of people.
Yeah. Interesting. This is genuinely is it's probably a conversation to have over a bottle of red, really, isn't it? Because you could really start to pull out some great theories on how this works, and it's fascinating to me how some people come at this from we need more, and others, as you've just described there, Simon, we need slightly less. Thank you very much indeed for that. Really nice chatting. Thank you to Clayton. It was Clayton that won the Voice of Doom. About 10 minutes ago, where the answer to the mystery voice was Caspar Weinberger, former American Secretary of Defense under Ronald Reagan. And we asked the question after Clayton had got it correct, how did you get it? Did you get the voice? Did you guess it? Did you research it? Were you familiar with the speech? Clayton says he got back in touch and said, I took a guess. It was either Caspar or Giuliani. Rudolph. Was it Rudolph Giuliani? That was his name. Was it Rudolph? Rudy Giuliani. That was Rudy Giuliani, who, of course, was the mayor of New York when 9/11 happened, latterly a lawyer of Donald Trump, and then he went completely bonkers. I used to think this man was the coolest politician ever. He kind of looked good, and he looked like the kind of person you'd want as a trusty uncle. He went nuts. So, yes, so Clayton, thank you. Yes, he took he says he took a guess, Caspar Weinberger or Rudy Giuliani. Didn't Weinberger get an honorary knighthood? Yes, he did, from the late Queen, in the 90s. Great knowledge. Well done, Clayton. Good work. That was the right answer. We have a different Voice of Doom tomorrow. We can hardly wait, but who will it be? I can tell you, I actually already know, because we work ahead of ourselves here, and that bit of pre-production, as it's called, has already been attended to. This is how it happens. You know, like when they bring out, if you win the FA Cup, they engrave it before you kind of, as you win it. That's what we do with the Voice of Doom. As I'm announcing the winner, the next one is being made already. It's a fine-tuned system we've got going here. Stand by, same time tomorrow, Voice of Doom. Right, it's 3:30. Brief pause. Back with more from you coming next on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 0344 499 1000. Sean Keach is with us, which is just absolutely flipping delightful. Sean, of course, is head of science. Sean thinks I'm being insincere there. I'm not. Sean is head of science and technology over there at the Sun. Good to see you.
That was too kind.
It was too kind.
It's almost aggressively kind.
It was a bit aggressively kind. Yeah, well, I only say that because when Sean came in, I said hello, and for some reason, Sean, I won't say the word, Sean thought I swore at him.
I thought you were attacking me verbally. I thought, oh, God, what have I done wrong?
He said, did you call me a... And then, yeah, I won't say what the word was, because we really would be off air. But it was... it's like, well, why would I do that, Sean? Why would I just randomly go, hey, Sean, you...
I think I'm fatigued.
You are, as a new dad, you are fatigued.
I've lost all sense of space and time.
Have you had some sleepless nights? Is that what's happened?
Almost every night. Although, actually, last night wasn't too bad. But I feel as though he waits for sort of when I'm doing important things to be extra loud.
That's exactly.
And so I had an important day on Monday, and he cried extra, I think, to punish me.
See, I don't mind. I never minded the waking up in the night. To me, was baked into the equation. Is you can't go, oh my God, the baby's crying in the night. It's like, yeah, that's what they do. They want some milk mostly, but. It's the outside of that. I remember before having kids, a friend of mine who's an editor was working from home. I was doing some work for him, and I said, well, you can work from home, can't you? You've got a 2-year-old, so... He said, well, not really. And I thought, what do you mean, not really? You've got a 2-year-old. They don't do anything, a 2-year-old. He said, no, they really do. And you know, even when they're not doing anything, they're making lots of noises that are very, very destructive and distracting to what you're trying to do.
Well, I mean, we're very lucky that he can't move from his position at the moment, but I imagine once he can start crawling out of sight, it's going to become infinitely more distressing because they don't stay where you put them. At the moment, he does.
Quite hilarious, though, aren't they? I mean, they are fun.
Oh, it's great fun. I've enjoyed being more childish myself and just sort of like playing on the floor again, which is lovely.
And then you discover TV in a way that you've not had to look at for years. You just suddenly realise. And, of course, there's much more of it now than there ever was because, you know, just when you think you've exhausted the entire supply of YouTube Kids or, you know, what's on BBC iPlayer, all that stuff, you realise that Amazon have 53 million children's titles on there, as well as... I mean, you really can't keep up with it.
I hear a lot of talk about Miss Rachel. We haven't embarked on Miss Rachel yet. I don't know what Miss Rachel is, but parents seem to rave about her.
Yeah,
her speaking to children through the TV.
Really?
It's quite soothing, apparently. But I don't know. I've never engaged with this Miss Rachel. I don't know who she is.
I tell you, the worst era is the one that my 7-year-old is in now, and that's when they get into watching actual programmes that are kind of like little silly comedies that are designed for kids of that age. So almost like sitcoms.
Yes.
Like, what's it called? Is it Rodney Danger? I think it's Rodney Danger, something like that. They're sitcoms.
Dangerfield. I don't know.
But you know, they have the canned laughter on that stuff, and they're awful. They're rubbish. But kids seem to like them.
Don't they chuck in, like, adult-level jokes sort of in the background
I think
that
they do sometimes.
Kids would miss?
But like a pantomime does.
Yeah, that you
they?
find hilarious.
They always put a double entendre in a pantomime, don't
That's
they?
what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, absolutely. You need lots of that, yeah. Right, Sean is, of course, head of science and tech, which means let's focus on some of that. WhatsApp, there's always a WhatsApp story at the moment, isn't there?
Very popular here.
And there, indeed. So what's happening now? Because this is about the idea that you don't give out a number, but give out a name.
Yeah, this might sound really boring when I start talking about it, but it's created tremendous buzz on social media. WhatsApp is basically letting you, for the first time, reserve usernames. And I think why it's causing such a stir is there's sort of this race to go and reserve your username. I don't know if you've had the pop-up yet in your app, but it should appear at some point this week. It'll appear at the top. You can reserve your username, and then you can give to that to someone instead of your phone number, which is a little bit more private. You know, you could just say, contact me on Ian Collins, rather than handing your phone number to everyone, which is much more safe. And then they've also set up this thing called a privacy key. So if you are Ian Collins and you're famous and you're worried that anyone could just guess that name and start texting you, you can set up the privacy key so that they also have to have this sort of secure 4-digit number in addition to your name, Ian Collins, to actually be able to text you. So it's meant to protect people of note, I guess.
So they would have to have your new buzz name.
Yes.
As well as a PIN code.
As well as a little PIN code. But that's optional, the PIN code. You don't have to have the PIN code.
Right.
And the usernames are optional. You don't have to set one up if you don't want. But I would recommend it because it is more private than giving your phone number.
That's a good point. But then... because you can't phone somebody.
Exactly, and people can't then text you over SMS because they don't have your phone number. It's just purely on WhatsApp. And also, you know, your phone number's tied to so many things, and I think people get a bit tired of having to give the phone number out because, I mean, it is quite a personal thing. You don't want everyone having your phone number, but you might want to still be able to WhatsApp with people.
But this is, of course, going to be a bit like when people were looking for web domains, when that was a big thing, and everybody wanted their own name, .com. Not even .co.uk was good enough. You got to get the .com, and then you realise somebody had bought it. Do you know, I once, so it doesn't really matter now, so iancollins.com is still there. It's not used really in any capacity. It's a holding page of old stuff. Yes. But I didn't have .co.uk. Oh, no. So... which was odd, because you think it might be the other way round. So there was .net, .biz, all of these things. And so I looked it up, and there was somebody that already had the site, and I wrote it. It's probably a completely different person now, been rebought by someone else. So I wrote this guy an email saying, oh, could you let me know? I already own the .com. If .co.uk comes up, is that? And I got the rudest... I mean, unbelievable. If you think I've worked all my life for this and I'm just going to give it over to you, you've got another thing coming. Who do you think you are? So, oh, mate, I just asked.
I hope his name was Ian Collins and he wasn't just squatting it for fun.
That's a very good point, actually, yeah. It could have been. Because people did make money out of that, didn't they?
Oh, loads of money.
They bought some really tasty names and then big companies were forced to buy it from them.
I regret choosing my name as my WhatsApp username and not picking Coca-Cola or something.
Coca-Cola.com. But some of that went to court, didn't they? Because the argument was, look, you didn't buy that name because you only bought it for this reason to sell it. So
that's not a legitimate purpose.
That slightly diluted your case.
I would have to convince courts that I often go by the name Coca-Cola.
I think yes, indeed. Yeah, that would be hard. But I think a lot of those big companies, even in those cases, went, look, here's 10 grand, just give us the domain, mate, and everybody was happy.
I think the difficulty here is that not everyone is receiving the update at the same time. They start going out, I think, at 5 p.m. on Monday or Tuesday, but it's a sort of staggered rollout. So some people have had an earlier chance to grab good names versus other people. I mean, you might still not have it on your phone. It could take until the end of the week. I would also mention that usernames themselves aren't live yet. It's just the reservation period. So you can choose your name now, but it'll be later this year that you can actually start handing them out to people. This is just trying to squat on your name.
Have you chosen yours?
I have. It's just my name, which I was quite happy with. Because there are a couple of other Sean Keaches out there, but they didn't get me.
But you got there first.
I got there first. I was the fastest. Or maybe I was just the luckiest with the rollout.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
Pretty happy with it. And I do have a pin, so don't try and message me.
No, won't work
strangers.
without the pin. Let's move to this story. You've been interviewing some pretty big figures in the world of tech. It's something you do quite a lot, but Google's UK boss, Kate Alessi, has been your latest interviewee.
Yes, I spoke to her on Monday. It was very interesting because they've done this massive report about how AI is impacting Brits in the UK, and they've basically split Brits into 4 groups. AI spectators, it was 10% of us, which apparently is the worst, which is people who are not interacting with AI at all. 38% of us are AI experimenters, so people who are just sort of testing the waters with AI. You've got practitioners, that's 37% of us. That's when you're using it daily. And then something called trailblazers, that's the top 15% of Brits. Apparently they're pushing boundaries with AI and finding new ways to use it every day. And that group is important because apparently they're 84% more likely to have been promoted, 55% more likely to have received a pay rise if you're in this trailblazer group.
Sure.
So you've got to climb, you've got to start using AI and get into this trailblazer group because clearly employers like it. You know, they're quite enjoying this idea of, you know, employees finding efficiencies using AI. So I think if you can start using it, I mean, the numbers bear out that it seems like you're much more likely to get a pay rise. And who wouldn't like a pay rise?
What is it? I mean, is this the only thing we're going to be teaching kids at some point? We're going to say, look, don't worry about maths and English and all that kind of stuff. Hey, we'll do the whole thing, and don't worry, because Elon Musk is working and putting a chip in the back of your head that will be able to retain all that knowledge anyway. So you'll just decide, you'll pick up, like you used to pick up what was that old disc that was an encyclopedia? Encarta.
Oh, Encarta, yes.
Remember that?
I've not heard that word in a long time.
I know. It'll be that, but in the back of your head. So you just go, I'll put the Wikipedia channel on, and you'll flick it, and you'll have all the information.
That was great. I felt like you were sort of like logging on to this arcane knowledge, didn't it?
I could not believe.
I'm accessing the archives.
I thought I was accessing the archives of the world. I could not believe it. And then, even better, Encyclopedia Britannica went on to disc. I think there was about 20 discs.
It had some quite swish graphics, if I remember, as well.
I love it. I just thought, this is amazing. I didn't know what to do with it. I just kept every now and again, I know, I'm going to test it. I'm going to put, you know, a random dinosaur in there and it would come up, or I'd put a king or a president from, you know, Kuala Lumpur. Would it come? Yes, it was there. It was just incredible.
And now Wikipedia has trivialised it all.
Absolutely. It's got it all. Story number 3. I was reading about this. Apple are hiking its prices. This isn't usually the direction of travel. I mean, obviously tech companies do quite well, and when they bring out new kit, they want to make a few quid. But the idea that there's been a very specific hike in the cost of things like Macs and iPads, it's pretty huge.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, when you look historically at these gadget prices, they sort of match inflation fairly safely anyway, so it doesn't feel like they're really sort of like, you know, attacking users with the pricing. But you're right, prices have gone up. The MacBook Neo's gone up by £100. The iPad Mini's gone up by £100. iPad Air's up by £150. There was one laptop spec that I looked at, a MacBook spec, that's gone up from £5,800 to £7,800, which is that's a £2,000 price rise. And it's all to do with memory, computer memory. So companies just cannot get access to it cheaply. It's gone up by about 2.5 times the price. And it's because all of the AI companies are buying up all this memory to put in their data centers. And so basically the three main companies that are making computer memory are just selling it to the AI companies because they can make so much more profit, which is basically starving consumer industries of memory, which means Xbox has put up their prices, PlayStation has put up their prices, Nintendo is putting up their prices.
So they can still get the chips.
It's just much more expensive.
But they're
because
more
the supply is so constrained.
Because the supply.
So it's very, very difficult. And the analysts are saying this is going to carry on right through to 2028. So we're probably going to expect more price rises.
Sure.
I suspect the iPhone that comes out in September will be a little bit more expensive as well because it's such a significant increase in cost.
Yes.
Hard to swallow.
Let's go back to AI and streaming. Netflix says it will use AI to create the voice of the late Gene Wilder in a new reality TV series set in the world of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. In fact, we can have a little listen to what it sounds like.
For the first time in decades, I'm opening my beloved Chocolate Factory. A whole new generation of real-life golden ticket holders will compete for a life-changing prize. Or say a most unfortunate goodbye.
Now, there's a couple of things about that. So this is a reality show, but the intro and all the voices are an AI. I would say if you're a voice artist of a certain level of versatility, that wouldn't be the hardest voice to do anyway.
No, but they have admitted that they've recreated it using AI, which is quite interesting. And the estate of Gene Wilder has approved this. So this is fully backed by them. In fact, his wife has said that it's going to bring joy and laughter and inspiration to people, which is quite nice. But it does raise that sort of weird question over what happens to your voice and your likeness after you die, and can your family just say, oh, well, yes, Ian Collins can live on forever broadcasting in the year 2250.
I quite like that idea.
Just eternally go on.
It's just there forever. It's just there forever. I'm kind of intrigued by the reality show. It obviously involves golden tickets somewhere along the line.
It was funny, they said the life-changing prize, and then they showed just a picture of a chocolate bar at the same time, so I hope the prize is a little
is
better.
that what you win, a bar of chocolate?
The sort of chocolatey Squid Game. I mean, it looks visually quite nice, and it'd be interesting to see what the challenges are like, but a lot of controversy over the use of Gene Wilder's voice as AI. People are saying that he would be rolling in his grave. But, I mean, his family seems to be happy with it. So it's a difficult one to pass. Obviously, he wouldn't have made the decision. You know, he's been gone for so long that he wouldn't
retrospectively have made that just in case I die and a thing called AI is invented.
So, but maybe that's something that we need to start thinking about for the future. I mean, do you put it in your will? No one can use my voice afterwards?
Will contestants be taken up the chocolate chute? Because that was the moment. Please. That was the Augustus Gloop. That's what happened to him, wasn't it? He like got all greedy, the little and was off he went.
Well, I mean, maybe they'll do a sort of chocolate eating. You know, like those horrible American hot dog eating contests where they eat 78 hot dogs. Maybe there'll be a chocolate eating contest.
It could be that, couldn't it?
Just Americans puking all over them.
All sorts of actors appear in the original one as well that you forget. So Roy Kinnear, whose son is Rory Kinnear, is in the first one. Edward Fox, I think, from the Fox dynasty, is the dad to what's the spoilt girl called? Veruca Salt. So there's all sorts of characters in it. I mean, it's an amazing film.
I haven't seen it in such a long time, and I do wonder if it still holds up. Because obviously they did the newer Wonka with Timothée Chalamet as well, so I don't know.
And the one in between, my other half worked on the Johnny Depp one, and she said the set was unbelievable.
It must be so fun to work on
walking into work
like that.
and looking, at that stuff. It was magical, even though you were working.
Well, I mean, we have the Cadbury's factory in Birmingham, which is similarly exciting.
Yes, I wonder if it's anything. I wonder if it's got a chocolate river over there in Bourneville. And finally, we were talking about this in the office a little earlier. Sony has said PlayStation will ditch discs from 2028. This comes off the back of the GFA announcement last week, where there's not going to be a physical option.
Ditching discs is a bit of a tongue twister.
Ditching discs.
But you're right, yeah, so GTA, they said that Grand Theft Auto, it's not going to come out on disc later this year. Now PlayStation has said from 2028 we're not going to do discs anymore. Obviously Game, the retailer, shut down all of its physical stores earlier this year. I mean, if it hadn't, this would have been a pretty big death knell. They said that they will still stock physical copies in stores, but again, like GTA, it will just contain the code inside the case.
Just inside the case.
And not a disc. So then, you can't pass them on to friends, you can't sell them on at CEX, so it creates that sort of difficulty. And then game retailers, I think, are going to really struggle with this, because who wants to go and manually buy a code that you just download?
But you also would think, and we were saying this in the office, like if the physical copy costs 70 quid, and somebody says, right, here's the digital copy, you'd go, well, what's that, 60 quid, 50 quid? No, it's still 70 quid.
In fact, sometimes it's more expensive to buy the digital version.
Which is a bit weird. The other thing that's really weird, and it's so bizarre, you almost think I must have missed something here, is the memory required to run things like... How many discs would it have been for GFA? For GTA 6, 10 Blu-rays, 10.
The size of games
it's quite
is
possible
staggering.
that your PlayStation will not have enough space to run the game.
And of course, if you want to buy...
if you've got a couple of other, fairly prominent
games... If you want to buy extra storage space, that is now going to cost you more money because the price of storage has gone up.
Well, obviously, surely there's going to be, coming this Christmas, the new place... I mean, people have their own workarounds and their own little memory hubs and God knows what else, but you'd have to imagine the Sony boys are onto that,
There is some theorising...
It's not like they've forgotten.
It sometimes works in game companies' benefits to have a massive game, because say if you make the Call of Duty and it's 250 gigabytes, that takes up such a huge chunk of your console that you're unwilling to delete it because it's the game you play, and then you can't install other games around it. And so you have to make these choices of which games do I keep installed on my machine. And so for blockbuster games, often they will win out and you'll keep that installed on your machine. Some of the lesser games you'll delete.
But a pain in the neck if you then go, oh, actually, I want to play it now, so I have to reinstall the
wait for hours. Oh, my broadband's rubbish, I can't get it.
Indeed. Great subjects here, Sean. This comes in from Testy McTester, who says, which may not be his real name, I don't know, who says, AI voice replication. Ask Sean what the repercussions are. Reference banking services like calling First Direct.
This is stressing banking companies out, and they are investing in trying to solve this problem. And it's such a widespread issue because.
So what is the problem?
Your voice can be cloned so easily, and a lot of banks rely on this voice detection. I mean, they have many security measures.
HMRC were doing that.
Well, yeah, exactly. And one of the techniques is to use voice detection. Does this person calling, who's asking for your money, sound like you when you usually call? Yeah. And it's a problem because it's so easy to replicate voices now that banks are having to move away from that because it's not really reliable anymore. I mean, that was pretty convincing, but if you have enough of someone, and you don't need very much of someone's voice at all to clone it, you only need a few seconds. But if you have a lot of voices, like you broadcast all day, it would be immensely easy to clone your voice, which is
I rang the Bradford and Bingley Building Society and managed to say I was Sean Keach. Walked away with 34 quid. I mean, not impressive. Not bad at all.
That put me into my overdraft by 33 quid.
Indeed. Sean, good to see you. Sean Keach with us, Head of Technology and Science over there at The Sun. You can read all of this online as well. Make sure you check out his pages too. Lots to get through. 10 to 4. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is interesting for a couple of reasons, by the way. Keir Starmer will introduce emergency legislation tomorrow to let all pubs stay open until 5 a.m. This is for England's 1 a.m. match against Mexico on Monday. Now, it's a bit bittersweet because that's great, but you've got to go to work after. So normally you go to the pub after you finish work. You don't go to the pub and then go to work. That's completely counterintuitive to what we do. However, and the government works from home, so it doesn't matter. So they're all right. They're all right. So if you're not working, it's probably all right. So anyway, my other point about that was about emergency legislation. We were talking about not being able to change the law to deport a child sex offender. And so it's too complex. You can't do that. But here's Keir Starmer saying, I'm just going to introduce emergency legislation tomorrow so you can have a pint and a bag of Nobby's nuts. That's fine. But we can't do the extraordinary, right? So, yes, it's great for those who want to go to a pub. I will watch it, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do a pub that night. I don't know. Everyone's got their own plan. Are you going to go to a pub, Finn, at 1 a.m.? So he's going to sleep before and then go to a pub, but then do you have a drink because you've got to come to work at, like, 7 a.m.? I was just going to come to work drunk, so a normal day for our producer. So that's fine. That works out really well. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people who are absolutely battered, aren't there, on a Monday, particularly if we win as well. Then that takes it to a whole different level. Many have tried to book the day off. That's proven tricky because obviously not every company can let everybody off. Did you notice how strange it was yesterday? How the roads suddenly went quiet when I got on my train to go home just after 4 o'clock. That train had 4 times the amount of people on it would normally have. So it was... yeah, it was kind of fascinating. Michelle says, as someone who's been gaming since able to hold a controller, I need to tell your science guy how annoyed the gaming community are. No physical copy means you are technically only renting, and they can take your games if they choose. They also lied and said several years ago that it would mean games would be cheaper. You will own nothing and be happy. Must everything be so damn dastardly? Firstly, Michelle, cracking use of the word dastardly. But I was talking to somebody about the cost of everything the other day. Oh, that's right. Yeah, the girl that was cutting my hair. About everything's a subscription, isn't it? And it's like there is that sense you don't ever need to own anything. So your music, you don't really own. If you're Spotify or Apple Music, you don't own that stuff. The films on you don't have your videos. I mean, this is in the entertainment sphere largely, and similarly with gaming. But there's loads of other. It's just a subscription world that we kind of live in. You subscribe to this, you subscribe to that, you sign up to this, you sign up to that. You look at your direct debits every month and how they would compare to somebody 10 or 15 years ago.